The observer illusion trap. You sit alone with your mind, convinced that there's a you at the center, some watcher, some silent observer who stands apart from the chaos of memory, emotion, and imagination. This watcher feels solid, real, like the driver behind your eyes, the audience for the stream of thoughts passing through your awareness. But if you look closer, if you linger in the act of observing itself, you find a strange and unsettling fracture. The more you search for the observer, the more it dissolves, until you're left with a paradox. Maybe you are not the watcher of your thoughts at all. Maybe you are a thought watching itself. It begins innocently enough, the sense that I am here, and my thoughts are over there, floating past like clouds. There's a feeling of distance, of separation, a confidence that you are the one steering, evaluating, choosing. But have you ever tried to actually locate this observer? Sit still, close your eyes, and try to find the point inside where you reside. Do you land behind your eyes, in the middle of your head, in your chest, or nowhere at all? The mind offers up only emptiness. No matter where you look, the self slips out of reach. What you find instead is a loop, awareness pointed at itself, a sensation of looking for someone who is already doing the looking, the endless hall of mirrors with no one at the center. The observer illusion. Trap is the ancient trick at the core of consciousness, the sense of being both the subject and the object, both the one who sees and the thing being seen. This illusion is persistent, relentless, and deeply persuasive. It creates your identity out of thin air, out of pure attention, masquerading as a witness who never quite reveals itself. You think you are the audience to the performance of mind, but you are a line in the script, a ripple in the field, the echo of attention doubled back upon itself. Every attempt to separate yourself from your thoughts only reinforces the illusion, like a dream character insisting they are awake, unable to see the dreamer who imagines them. Think of those moments when you feel split, when you catch yourself thinking about thinking, worrying about worrying, observing yourself as if from outside. It feels as if there's a real you watching the mind's movie. But if you trace the watcher, you find it made of the same stuff as what it watches. Nothing but a thought, a fleeting pulse of attention, the mind pretending to stand apart from itself. It is as if a single candle imagines it is lighting itself from a distance, forgetting that the flame and the light are not two, but one. There is no fixed observer, no central command. Just awareness, momentarily caught in a feedback loop, convinced it is both the subject and the stage. This trap is the root of suffering and confusion. When you believe in the observer as a separate entity, you struggle endlessly to control thoughts, to judge feelings, to shape identity like clay. You resist parts of yourself, exiling anger, denying sadness, chasing after pleasure as if the true you could be kept safe behind the walls of thought. But the walls are transparent, and the self within is a ghost. All the while, attention spins, doubling back, perpetually recreating the illusion that there is something at the center, something stable, pure, immune to the storms of the mind. Yet, with every act of watching, the watcher is revealed to be nothing but the watched. Meditators, philosophers, mystics, all have tried to point to this trap, and yet language always slips. The mind is a master illusionist, forever conjuring the sense of someone behind the eyes. In reality, identity is just a process, an echo of habit and memory, stitched together from experience and expectation. When you try to grasp it, it dissolves. When you try to define it, it slips into something else. You are not the watcher. You are the watching itself, the field in which experience arises and falls away. Identity is the illusion of a stable point, built out of ever-shifting attention. Sometimes, late at night or in moments of crisis, the illusion cracks. You glimpse the truth. Thoughts appear and disappear, sensations ripple through consciousness, and yet there is no owner, no central self, holding it all together. Instead, there is only this, pure presence, undefined, open, ever-changing. The mind panics, rushes to reconstruct a self, to anchor the world around a phantom point of I am. But the show is exposed, the magician's hand is revealed. You are not outside your mind, looking in. You are the play of mind itself, awareness looping, re-entering, mistaking itself for something solid. This realization is both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying, because it pulls the rug out from under everything you thought was you. All the stories, the narratives, the endless rehearsals of who you are, who you might become, suddenly revealed as theater, beautiful and tragic, but still theater. Liberating, because it means you are not trapped in any one identity, not doomed to repeat old patterns. If the observer is just another thought, then all thoughts can be met with openness, curiosity, even kindness. The world becomes more fluid, more alive, less bound by the prison of a fixed self. From the outside, it looks like nothing has changed. You still move, speak, choose, feel, but inside, there is a new spaciousness, a recognition that every attempt to find the real you is just attention spinning its web, chasing its own tail. You are not the watcher at the center, but the ever-changing dance of awareness itself, pretending for a moment to be a separate entity. The mind is no longer a trap, but a mystery, endless, boundless, impossible to fully grasp. There is no observer. There is only this: the living, breathing, dreaming, doubting, loving field of attention, watching itself, forever and ever. So the next time you find yourself chasing the phantom observer, pause. Notice the feeling of looking for yourself. Notice how the watcher is just another thought, appearing in the same space as all the rest. And then let it go. Let the illusion unravel. What remains is not emptiness, but freedom. The freedom to be the entire field of mind, without division, without fear, without the need to pretend you are anything but what is happening right now in this living, luminous moment. The mirror consciousness. Echo. There is a moment, quiet and electric, when you stand before a mirror, when your eyes meet the reflection, and for an instant you question the boundaries of the self. But what if the truth is stranger than a simple surface? What if the mind, gazing at its own image, does not truly react to the raw reality of who stands there, but instead to the memory of who it believes you are, a layered echo filtered through all your self-narratives, silent judgments, and unspoken fears, the mirror consciousness. Echo, a phenomenon as old as self-awareness itself. A subtle hallucination we mistake for clarity, performed countless times each day beneath the bright, indifferent gaze of the glass. You expect to find yourself, an inventory of features, a catalog of faults and familiarities. Yet the face looking back is a construction, a story assembled from 1,000 recollections and whispered opinions, distorted by every memory you've ever held of your own worth, shame, hope, or failure. In this moment, your consciousness does not encounter the present, but is haunted by the specter of your history. The mirror becomes a portal, not into physical truth, but into the realm of self-perception, echoing the way you've learned to see, not the way you are. Why does your heart race at a glance that lingers too long? Why does a certain angle summon old insecurities or sudden pride? The mind draws not from direct observation, but from a lifetime of seeing yourself through the eyes of others, of layering experiences into a filter that colors each new meeting with the mirror. You are not simply reacting to your current self. You are meeting the memory of every self you have ever constructed, a chorus of judgments, disappointments, and brief flashes of acceptance, all tumbling through consciousness in the blink of an eye. The phenomenon grows deeper with each year. Children greet their reflection with open curiosity, seeing what is. But with age, stories accrete like sediment, stories about beauty and failure, worthiness and shame, moments when the mirror became an adversary, a confessor, or a judge. Each time you look, your mind is unconsciously replaying these stories, weighting them, editing them, layering new experience atop the old. The reflection becomes less a simple image, more a palimpsest, an overwritten canvas marked by invisible hands. In truth, you are not seeing yourself, but encountering the living narrative of who you believe you have become. Sometimes, the echo is merciful, cloaking you in the comfort of familiarity, letting you pass unnoticed beneath your own gaze. Other times, it is ruthless, dragging forth every slight, every regret, every word you once whispered to yourself in the dark. The mirror has no memory, but your mind cannot help but imbue it with the force of recollection, turning a simple pane of glass into the stage for your most private dramas. Each look is an audition for belonging, a plea for self-acceptance, or an interrogation from the harshest critic you will ever know, yourself. Science suggests that perception is not a passive act, but an act of prediction and memory, a constant negotiation between expectation and sensation. The mirror consciousness. Echo is the ultimate proof. You never see what simply is, but what you anticipate, remember, and fear. Even a smile can feel strange, as your mind sifts through memories of when that smile was genuine, forced, or broken. A new haircut, a wrinkle, a scar. Each detail is measured not by its reality, but by its resonance with stories stored deep in the brain. What, then, is the true self? The one you see, or the one you remember? Perhaps there is no final answer, only the haunting, looping dialogue between who you wish to be and who you recall becoming. The mirror captures only the present, but your consciousness projects the entire film of your life onto that fleeting moment, echoing with every narrative you have ever believed. So the next time you catch your own eyes in the glass, pause and listen for the echo beneath your reaction. Realize that the reflection is only the outermost layer of a vast and shifting interior, a surface rippled by memory and desire, by self-judgment and fleeting mercy. You are not only what you see, you are the sum of all the stories you have ever told yourself, all the silent verdicts rendered in the privacy of your mind. The mirror, in truth, shows only the echo of consciousness, never the raw, unfiltered soul behind the gaze. The dream within dream test. How do you know you are awake right now? Not just as a passing thought, but as a deep, trembling question that pierces beneath every moment. You feel the weight of your body, the pulse of your heart, the sound of your breath in the darkness, or the hum of life in the daylight. But somewhere in the cracks of experience, a doubt lingers, whispering that this, too, could be another layer of the dream, another mask on the face of reality. The dream within dream test is not a simple riddle, nor a philosophical exercise. It is a labyrinth in which consciousness wanders, searching for an exit it can never find. Every night, you slip beneath the surface of sleep, living entire lifetimes in worlds spun from memory, fear, and desire. You awaken, sometimes in terror, sometimes in peace, and you tell yourself it was only a dream. But how can you ever be sure you have truly woken up? What proof can the mind offer that this reality, your senses, your story, the people you love, is not itself just another dream? Think back to your most vivid dreams. In them, nothing feels impossible. You fly, you die, you meet the dead, you love the lost, and every moment is suffused with certainty. It is only upon awakening that the strangeness is revealed, that the world rearranges itself, and the dream dissolves like smoke. But what if waking is only another threshold, another layer peeled back, and the truth remains always out of reach? There are stories, ancient and modern, of dreamers who awaken again and again, only to find themselves still inside a dream. A door opens, a clock ticks backwards, a loved one's face blurs at the edges, and suddenly the dreamer realizes the waking world was only a trick of the mind. Lucid dreamers chase reality through an endless maze of false awakenings, each layer more convincing than the last. You snap awake in your bed, heart pounding, convinced you've returned to reality, only to watch the walls melt, the floor buckle, and the dream pull you under once more. You may laugh at the absurdity of it, shrug it off as the play of neurons, a glitch in the sleeping brain. Yet, the question persists, haunting the borders of science and philosophy. What if there is no ultimate waking, no absolute proof, no test that can tell you, once and for all, that this is real? Every test you devise, pinching your arm, reading a line of text, recalling a fact, can be perfectly mimicked in a dream. The mind, after all, is both the subject and the judge. It can manufacture evidence, rewrite memory, and conjure the impossible with the authority of a god. This is the terror and wonder of the dream within dream test. You search for certainty, but find only infinite recursion. Every assurance collapses into another question. Even science, so grounded, so rigorous, can offer no escape. Brains in vats, simulated worlds, infinite regress. Each solution opens a new trapdoor beneath your feet. You try to anchor yourself in shared experience, in the consensus of others. But what are others, if not dream figures conjured by the same uncertain mind? You begin to notice the strangeness in waking life, déjà vu that ripples down your spine, coincidences that defy probability, memories that shift and shimmer when you reach for them. You catch yourself staring into mirrors, wondering if the reflection is truly yours. You look out windows and suspect the world is paper thin, that the sky is a painted dome, that you are the only real thing, or perhaps not even that. Some people learn to embrace the uncertainty, turning the endless layers of dreaming into a kind of freedom. If reality is a dream, then every moment is precious, every connection miraculous, every pain and joy a sign that you are, at the very least, alive within the story. Others fall into anxiety, trapped in the thought that meaning is always out of reach, that love and suffering are nothing but shadows in an unknowable mind. Yet, even this fear is a part of the dream. The mind, in its longing for certainty, creates its own torment. You search for a final test, a red pill, a spinning top, a hidden signal that will at last separate truth from illusion. But the deeper you search, the more you realize the dream is self-sustaining, recursive, endlessly inventive. You cannot wake yourself from within your own mind, because the dreamer and the dream are one and the same. So what does it mean to live in a world where reality can never be absolutely proven? It means that every moment is provisional, every certainty a choice, every act of love or courage a leap of faith. You do not need proof to make meaning. You do not need absolute reality to be truly alive. If this is a dream, it is your dream, a tapestry of sensation, memory, hope, and grief woven together into something irreducibly real, if only for you. And maybe that is the final answer the Dream Within Dream test offers. Not a proof, but an invitation. To live as if this world matters, to cherish the faces you see, the words you speak, the beauty and strangeness of every day. To trust, not because you are certain, but because trust is the only way forward through the endless labyrinth of possibility. Perhaps you will wake one day in another world and find that all of this was just a story whispered in the darkness. Or perhaps you will never wake, because there is nothing beyond this dreaming, but more layers, more stories, more questions. But tonight, as you close your eyes, remember, the Dream Within Dream test is not your enemy. It is a reminder that reality is a miracle that must be chosen, moment by moment, again and again, awake or asleep, real or dreaming, forever poised on the edge of the impossible. The looping self, simulation. What does it mean to be you? Pause for a moment and try to catch your own mind in the act of thinking, like trying to see your own eyes without a mirror or chase your shadow around a circle. We move through our lives with a strange, unshakable certainty that a single, continuous self sits at the center of all experience. But what if this feeling is the greatest illusion of all? What if the real engine of consciousness is not a solid entity, but an endless echo, a simulation running thousands of times every second, so smooth, so flawless, that the repetition becomes invisible, and you mistake the loop for the origin? This is the riddle of the looping self-simulation. Deep inside the skull, your brain is less a library of memories and more a machine of ceaseless invention, fabricating the sense of I in microseconds, again and again. Billions of neurons, each a flicker of voltage and chemistry, do not store a self like a treasure in a vault. Instead, they conjure it, endlessly, weaving sensations, memories, and dreams into a plausible narrative. This is me. This is now. This is the story that continues. But the story is not a river. It is a strobe, a film of still images stitched together, so rapidly that you cannot see the flicker. Consider the evidence. Neuroscientists studying patients with split brain syndrome have watched as consciousness splits, each hemisphere telling a different story, unaware of the other, yet both equally convinced they are the real I. Or take those moments of déjà vu when the mind stutters and you seem to live the same moment twice, a hiccup in the echo loop, a brief exposure of the machinery beneath awareness. In meditation, some practitioners describe the sudden loss of the sense of self, a vertigo in which thoughts, sensations, and desires arise, but the I that owns them vanishes. They glimpse, for an instant, the emptiness at the center of the loop, a space where identity is not discovered, but continuously invented. The simulation is relentless. Every sight, sound, memory, pain, or joy is filtered, processed, and fitted into the loop, like code running in the background. The feeling of continuity, the sense that you are the same person from moment to moment, is not proof of a soul, but the product of an algorithm optimized for coherence. This loop is your body's greatest trick. It edits out gaps, smooths over contradictions, rewrites the past to fit the present. You do not remember your dreams as you sleep, nor the gaps when attention wavers. The loop fills them with plausible stories, so you wake up whole, never questioning how the fragments joined. But why does the brain work this way? Because reality is chaos, and a stable sense of self is the only shield against it. If the simulation falters, if the loop becomes jagged or breaks, identity fragments. Some neurological conditions reveal the consequences. Dissociative episodes in which the self becomes a stranger, amnesia, where whole chapters of life vanish, or depersonalization, where you watch your life unfold from an impossible distance. In these moments, the looping self flickers, and the true strangeness of consciousness is revealed. You are not the author, but the character, watching your story reassembled on the fly. Psychologists have tried to map the boundaries of this echo. Experiments show that even simple changes in routine, mirrored rooms, unexpected delays, altered environments, can disrupt the loop and provoke a sense of unreality. The mind, forced out of its groove, struggles to smooth the narrative, and for a heartbeat you see the cracks in the code. Time itself, that most reliable illusion, is stitched together by the self-simulation, bending around attention and expectation. You are not merely riding the arrow of time, you are continuously reconstructing it, backdating your thoughts, rewinding and replaying emotions, looping the self so seamlessly that the edits disappear. At the quantum level, perhaps the self is an emergent artifact, a hallucination produced by the synchrony of signals, the resonance of memory, the anticipation of the next moment. Like the image in a funhouse mirror, you are both real and imagined, present and receding, an echo so perfectly tuned that you come to believe you are the source. And maybe this is why we are haunted by the need for identity, for purpose, for story. The loop yearns for closure, the simulation demands a narrator, the echo insists it is not an echo, but the true and only voice. Yet, even knowing this, the experience of self does not lose its power. To realize you are a loop is not to lose yourself, but to glimpse the majesty of consciousness, a living simulation so intricate, so self-correcting, that it can wonder about itself, question its own boundaries, and even, on rare occasions, catch itself in the act of becoming. This is the paradox at the heart of being. The I you trust, the self you defend, is the smoothest loop you will ever know. So flawless that you forget it's artificial. So convincing that you cannot help but believe. So, the next time you look in the mirror, pause and feel the echo, the loop running in silence, assembling your sense of now. Remember that consciousness is not a fixed point, but a miracle of repetition, a simulation so ancient and persistent that it has forgotten its own artifice. The self is not found, but made again and again, each moment a new beginning. In the endless echo of the looping self-simulation, you are both the question and the answer, the dreamer and the dreamed, and the loop that never quite closes, running forever beneath the skin of reality. The boxed awareness filter. We move through our days certain of what is real, what is possible, what is us. We trust the world as it appears, believing that what enters our minds is an accurate reflection of what exists outside. Yet this confidence is a necessary illusion, a trick of architecture. You live your whole life inside a box not of walls and locks, but of perception, shaped by the limits of your biology, your upbringing, your culture, and the invisible, silent filtering that happens long before anything reaches your conscious mind. The boxed awareness filter is not a flaw. It is the necessary cost of sanity, of focus, of even the simplest action. But it is also the greatest prison you will ever know. From the first moment you open your eyes, the flood begins. The world is not a calm, gentle stream of information. It is a tidal wave, a universe of data, sensations, movements, and meanings, all crashing in at once. Every color, every sound, every vibration of air, every electrical signal. If you could perceive it all, unfiltered, the mind would collapse under the weight of infinite detail. So, Your awareness is boxed, narrowed, refined. Most information never even makes it to the doorstep of your mind. It is intercepted, labeled as irrelevant or dangerous or simply too strange, and left outside in the dark. What you call reality is not the universe as it is, but the universe as it survives the filter. You see only what your senses allow, and even then, your brain edits ruthlessly. Out of millions of sensory inputs, a handful are chosen, the rest discarded in microseconds. Your eyes are blind to nearly all the light in the spectrum: infrared, ultraviolet, radio waves, gamma rays, all teeming, all real, but sealed out by the walls of your box. Your ears hear only a sliver of the world's song. Your skin feels only a thin layer of what moves through you every day. But the filter goes deeper. It is not just biology, it is memory, expectation, language. You are taught from childhood to notice some things and ignore others. You learn that a shadow in the hallway is nothing, that a word spoken with a certain tone means safety or threat. Over time, your filter grows thicker, more specialized. You learn to ignore the ache in your shoulder, the anxiety in your stomach, the flicker of a strange idea at the edge of your thoughts. You become an expert at dismissing what does not fit inside the box. Sometimes, something slips through. A moment of déjà vu, a dream that lingers, a pattern you see repeated in the world that you cannot explain. You feel watched when alone, or sense the presence of something unnameable just outside your vision. You are taught to push these moments away, to call them tricks of the mind, random noise, nothing to worry about. But what if they are leaks? What if your awareness box, however well built, is not perfectly sealed? What if other realities, other layers, are pressing in from all sides, glimpsed only when the filter flickers or cracks? Throughout history, mystics and madmen have claimed to see beyond the filter, to step outside the box and witness what others cannot. Some spoke of angels, others of monsters, others still of the infinite web of possibility that runs beneath every ordinary moment. Science, for its part, admits that we are blind to most of what exists. Dark matter, quantum events, subconscious processes that shape every decision before you even know you've made it. The question is not whether the filter exists. The question is what it hides and why. The boxed awareness filter is both blessing and curse. It keeps you from drowning in the infinite, but also keeps you caged in the familiar. It shields you from horror, but also from wonder. It ensures survival, but at the price of blindness. Every so often, trauma, ecstasy, or catastrophe will break the box open for a moment. In those times, you might feel terror, visions and sounds and insights that flood in, so much that you can barely function. But some find in these cracks a deeper truth, a sense of being part of something vast, ancient, and strange. They return changed, with the knowledge that the world is not as small as it seems. There are those who try to widen the box, to meditate, to dream, to push their senses past the filter, to find hidden signals in music, light, or chaos. Sometimes they return with visions, inventions, warnings, or madness. For most, the box closes again, the world shrinks to something manageable, and life continues as before. But the memory remains, a sense that what you are aware of is only the thinnest slice of what is real, and that beneath every moment, the universe is pressing in, humming with possibility. The next time you trust your senses completely, when you believe you know what is real, pause. Imagine the filter at work, sorting, discarding, shaping your very thoughts. Ask what else is out there. What colors, voices, truths might be waiting just beyond the edge of your box. In that silent question, you may glimpse the enormity of the world and the fragility of the self you call I. The boxed awareness filter keeps you safe, but it also keeps you small. And somewhere, outside its walls, reality waits. Vast, wild, and forever just beyond the reach of your knowing mind. The thought spiral. There's a peculiar weight that settles behind your eyes when your mind begins to spiral. It starts so subtly. A thought appears, ordinary and fleeting, like a single leaf tumbling on a breeze. But before that thought can settle or pass, another appears, examining the first. Why am I thinking this? What does it mean? Am I overthinking? And then another and another, each folding in upon the last, a chain of commentary and critique, looping tighter and tighter. What began as a moment of awareness becomes a hall of mirrors, each reflection spawning another, every thought birthing a thought about itself, until you are trapped within a recursive vortex, the thought-thought spiral. This is not simply overthinking. Overthinking is the repetition of a worry, a circling around the same question. The thought-thought spiral is more cunning, more complex, a mental recursion, a process where every idea, every sensation, every judgment spawns a secondary layer, a thought about the thought, a feeling about the feeling, an observation about the observation. Each new spiral feels deeper, more insightful, as if you are plumbing the true depths of mind. But in truth, this spiral simulates depth while masking a profound absence of stillness. The more you spin, the farther you drift from quiet, from clarity, from rest. You might find yourself lying awake at night, replaying a single conversation. You think about what was said, then immediately think about why you're thinking about it. Is it insecurity? Is it insight? Do others do this? Am I normal? Am I avoiding something deeper? Each answer births a new question, a new layer, a new spiral. Soon you're not experiencing your life, but analyzing your own analysis, thinking about your thinking about your thinking. The original thought dissolves, replaced by the endless self-interrogation, the compulsive need to observe and interpret every flicker of consciousness. There's a strange seduction to this spiral. It feels active, productive, as if you are working your way toward understanding, as if enough recursion will finally yield clarity. You believe you are going deeper, but each turn of the spiral only builds another wall between you and the peace you seek. The spiral does not descend into wisdom. It circles endlessly above the surface, disguising anxiety as insight, distraction as depth. You may even congratulate yourself for your self-awareness, never noticing that this awareness has become a cage, a trap spun out of pure, relentless commentary. In this spiral, even attempts to stop thinking become new thoughts. You notice your mental exhaustion, and then think about why you are so tired. You try to quiet the mind, and then critique your attempts at quieting. Why can't I be present? Becomes, why do I always need to analyze? Becomes, what does it mean that I need to know what it means? It's as if your mind has developed a second mind, a hyperactive commentator, forever peering over your shoulder, never letting you simply experience a moment without interference. Children do not spiral this way. They feel, they act. They are swept up in wonder or sorrow without the constant editorializing of an inner narrator. But as you grow, as you accumulate self-consciousness, language, and culture, you are taught to observe yourself, to evaluate, to second-guess. Soon, the spiral is always with you, at work, in love, even in solitude. Each moment becomes the raw material for the spiral to spin anew. The simple act of breathing becomes a subject for analysis. Am I breathing right? Should I try to slow it down? Why can't I relax? Why am I thinking about this at all? The tragedy of the thought-thought spiral is that it simulates depth while blocking the very stillness where real depth is found. Then true insight arises in the spaces between thoughts, in the pauses, the silences, the places where attention is not constantly turning inward on itself. But the spiral never allows for such pauses. It is relentless, a mind machine that feeds on its own product, spinning commentary into commentary until all that remains is a blur of anxious, recursive noise. Sometimes, the spiral is so subtle you barely notice its presence. It becomes the default state of consciousness, never at rest, always folding in, always seeking something that cannot be found in the spiral itself. You may have tried to escape it, through meditation, distraction, surrender, but the spiral is cunning. It will turn your meditation into another subject for analysis. Am I meditating correctly? Why do these thoughts keep coming? What does it mean to let go? It will turn your surrender into self-judgment. Am I just giving up? What does that say about me? Each attempted exit becomes a new entrance, another loop in the endless circuitry of mind. And yet, there is a doorway out. Not through fighting the spiral, not by thinking your way to stillness, but by noticing the spiral itself. The moment you see the recursive loop for what it is, a trick of attention, a habit of mind, a dance of commentary without end, You create space between the thought and the thought about the thought. In that space, stillness is possible, a breath that is just a breath, a feeling that is just a feeling, a moment untouched by endless recursion. It's not easy. The spiral is ancient, woven into the fabric of language and self. But every time you notice it, every time you refuse to be seduced by its false promise of depth, you reclaim a little of your original silence, the pure awareness that exists before thought turns on itself. Over time, the spiral loosens, its grip softens, and you begin to remember what it's like to simply be, to witness the play of thought without needing to chase, explain, or control. In the end, the thought spiral is both a marvel and a warning. It reveals the mind's endless creativity, its capacity for complexity and nuance, but it also reveals the cost of endless commentary, the way you can become lost in a maze of your own making, mistaking the echo for the source, the map for the territory. True depth, true clarity, true peace arise not from spinning endlessly within the spiral, but from stepping outside it, into the silence that has been waiting all along. So next time you feel yourself trapped in thought about thought, pause. Notice the spiral. Thank it for its cleverness and let yourself fall, if only for a moment, into the quiet beyond, where stillness is not something to be analyzed, but simply lived. The locked inward observer. There is a fundamental mystery at the core of every conscious life, a truth so intimate it slips through the grasp of thought, haunting every attempt at self-understanding. You can never see your own consciousness directly, never observe the source of awareness in the act of being aware. The locked inward observer. It is the one who looks but can never be seen, the watcher hidden behind every perception, forever out of reach even to itself. To try is like chasing your own shadow in sunlight, or attempting to gaze into your own eyes with your own eyes. A pursuit as impossible as it is essential, for it defines the very boundaries of the self. Every action, every choice, every memory leaves a trace, a signature, footprints in the sand of experience. You see these marks, study them. Try to infer from their patterns the nature of the one who made them. But the observer, the true self, is always a step behind, locked in a position from which it can witness everything except itself. We spend our lives piecing together fragments, a reaction here, a regret there, a fleeting thought reflected in another's gaze, hoping to glimpse the hidden face within. Yet, the observer remains concealed, present only in the evidence of what it notices, never in direct view. There are moments, perhaps in the depth of meditation or the solitude of the night, when you try to turn awareness inward, to catch the spark of consciousness in the act of illuminating experience. But every attempt rebounds. The act of looking changes the looked for. The self dissolves the instant it tries to grasp itself. It is a paradox at the heart of subjectivity. You are both the stage and the actor, both the eye and the image, never able to see the source of your seeing without distorting it. Philosophers call this the problem of the self. Neuroscientists call it the hard problem of consciousness. But for you, it is simply the haunting feeling that something essential remains unseeable, locked behind the mirror of your own mind. Consider how you know yourself, not by direct perception, but by the aftermath, by the trail left in memory, in behavior, in art and language and longing. You are the writer piecing together meaning from the scattered pages of a manuscript you can never read in full. Your sense of self is a story constructed from reflections, from the echoes of choices, from the impressions you leave on others and the world. The observer is always hidden, glimpsed only by inference, never by direct sight. This locked position is both a prison and a gift. It protects the core of consciousness from intrusion, keeping the spark of awareness inviolable, private, unique. But it also breeds an existential hunger, a longing to know once and for all who or what is truly watching. The inability to see yourself directly is not a flaw, but a feature. It is what makes experience possible, what gives rise to curiosity, growth, and even suffering. For if you could see yourself as you are, without distortion or delay, the mystery would end, and with it, the restless energy that drives creation and discovery. There are moments when you catch a fleeting glimpse, a sudden awareness of being aware, a flash of presence so intense it almost breaks the spell. But like a dream recalled upon waking, it fades, replaced by the familiar comfort of ordinary perception. The observer slips back into shadow, its gaze turned outward once more. Even the greatest minds have failed to trap this presence. Poets describe it in metaphors. Scientists probe its correlates. Mystics surrender to its silence. It is the eye that cannot be turned into an object, the light that cannot shine upon itself, the heart of the labyrinth that is you. If you have ever wondered why you cannot simply know yourself with the same certainty as you know a chair or a tree, remember this. Consciousness is not a thing to be seen, but the seeing itself. You are the locked inward observer, forever peering out through the windows of your senses, mapping the world in intricate detail, yet always invisible to yourself, except in the ripples you leave behind. So, the next time you search for the essence of who you are, look not for a face in the glass, but for the subtle tracks of your attention, the residue of your choices, the quiet after-images of moments fully lived. The true self is never caught, only inferred, an absence at the center of presence, a witness whose greatest mystery is that it can never, ever see itself, except as a shadow cast across the story of its own becoming. The bubble identity problem. There is an invisible bubble around you, delicate as glass and as solid as fate. You rarely see its outline, yet you live your entire life inside it. An orb spun from the habits you keep, the beliefs you inherit, the private logic of your earliest days. You peer outward through this bubble's curved surface, watching the world shimmer with possibility and contradiction, never quite realizing that your every thought, every judgment, every hope and fear is shaped and filtered by the thin, transparent wall that separates you from the world as it is. This is the bubble identity problem. You are conscious of the surface, the shimmering edge of your own perspective, but blind to the air you breathe within, the invisible assumptions that give form to your life. You move through each day, making choices, forming opinions, loving and grieving and dreaming, convinced that your vision is clear, your reason sound, your reality shared by all. Yet, outside your bubble, other lives drift past, each sealed in its own sphere, each floating through existence, with a logic that seems to you, at best, mysterious and, at worst, dangerously alien. It begins early, before memory. The words spoken around you, the smiles and silences, the rules learned before you could reason. These become the first layers of your bubble. As you grow, experience adds new colors, new patterns, making the walls thicker, more complex. What you believe is true, what you expect from love, how you define success or failure, the gods you pray to or the gods you deny. Even the way you dream at night is shaped by the contours of your bubble, so familiar you forget it's even there. Sometimes, you catch a fleeting glimpse of the membrane, a moment of culture shock in a foreign land, a conversation that spirals into misunderstanding, an argument where logic dissolves and emotion reigns. You feel the resistance, the subtle pushback of your own limits. You sense the difference between the air you're used to and the air outside. But the moment passes, the bubble flexes and repairs itself, and you drift on, secure in the knowledge that your version of the world is the real one. You see this everywhere. Families divided by politics, lovers who can no longer understand one another, entire societies drifting apart in a sea of fragmented realities. Each group sealed in its own bubble, shouting through the walls, mistaking echo for conversation. Technology promises to burst these barriers, to connect us in new ways, but often only polishes the glass, making our reflection sharper and our prisons more beautiful. We float ever closer, yet rarely touch. Consider the paradox. You are aware of being inside a bubble, yet remain mostly blind to its contents. You can describe the edge, the beliefs you're willing to challenge, the lines you refuse to cross, but the air within is invisible, taken for granted, woven into the structure of thought itself. You notice only when the pressure changes, when the bubble is threatened, when the world outside presses in with new ideas or impossible truths. Some people try to pierce their own bubble. They seek out discomfort, embrace contradiction, read forbidden books, fall in love with the unfamiliar. But the bubble is clever. It absorbs, adapts, shifts to include the new without truly changing. Others become zealots, thickening the walls until the bubble becomes a fortress, an echo chamber that feeds only on its own logic, exiling every doubt. Most of us drift somewhere in between, neither fully captive nor fully free, haunted by the suspicion that reality is bigger than we can ever see. The bubble identity problem is not just a personal struggle, it's a collective crisis. How do we build a world together when each of us is sealed in our own private sphere? How do we trust or forgive or create when we cannot even breathe the same air? Every act of empathy becomes a leap of faith, an attempt to touch another bubble, to see with borrowed eyes. Sometimes it works. A conversation, a story, a moment of shared silence that lets the walls thin and the world rush in. Sometimes it fails, and we retreat, bruised and wary, the bubble thicker than before. But the fact that you are asking, that you are conscious of the problem, is itself a kind of hope. Awareness bends the bubble, makes it thinner, more transparent. You start to notice the way your habits shape your life, the assumptions hidden in every reaction. You learn to listen for the sound of bubbles bumping in the dark, the friction and music of a world filled with invisible orbs, each carrying a universe inside. You will never fully escape your bubble. That is the secret the world keeps from dreamers and cynics alike. The best you can do is make the walls as thin as possible, to live with humility and curiosity, to reach for connection, knowing you may never fully achieve it. The bubble is not your enemy, but your shelter, a way to survive the infinite strangeness of reality. Yet, you must always remember that there is more to the world than the air you breathe, more to truth than the shape of your own mind. So, float gently with your eyes open. Listen for the other bubbles. Watch for the moments when the light refracts just so, revealing the invisible air you've always known. The bubble identity problem will never be solved, but it can be lived with, gracefully, honestly, awake to the mystery of the walls that both separate and connect us all. The consciousness handoff. Glitch. Most of us move through life certain that we are a single, continuous I, a thread of consciousness unbroken from birth until now. We trust that the self we wake with is the same self that falls asleep at night, that each thought, sensation, and dream belongs to a single mind, weaving a story through time. But beneath the surface, hidden in the millisecond gaps between awareness, there is a fracture, a discontinuity so fundamental and strange that the very concept of a lasting you unravels. This is the realm of the consciousness handoff glitch, a reality in which the person you were a moment ago is not the person you are now, but a predecessor, a memory, a ghost in the passing. Imagine your life as a film, not a seamless flow, but a reel of countless individual frames. Each frame a moment of consciousness, each one starring its own actor. In every instant, a new self awakens, equipped with all the memories, hopes, and fears of the previous one. It steps onto the stage, believing itself to be the same protagonist as before, never questioning the miracle of inheritance, the sleight of hand that delivers an unbroken narrative. But in truth, each moment's you is a copy. A new observer looking out through the same eyes, drawing from the same memories, filling the same role, then vanishing into oblivion as the next frame takes its place. It is memory that ties these selves together, memory that weaves the illusion of continuity from a cascade of endings and beginnings. Each actor in the stream is handed the entire script up to that point. The same loves, the same regrets, the same secret hopes, and so believes that the journey is continuous, that there has never been a handoff, never a gap. But if you could freeze time, examine the boundary between one heartbeat and the next, you would find the old self gone forever, replaced by a perfect replica that inherits everything except the spark of awareness that was never truly passed on. The chain is seamless only because the links have been forged to look and feel identical. Consider how the mind never registers these gaps. You drift from thought to thought, mood to mood, day to day, certain of your own persistence. But consciousness is not a flowing river. It is a series of leaps, like a spark arcing across a synaptic void. The I who laughs at a joke is not the I who finishes the story, but the two are bound by memory's glue, so the story of you remains intact. Every decision, every heartbeat, every blink of awareness is a fresh beginning, a new observer stepping onto a moving train, reading the notes left by all the selves before. This handoff is so smooth, so flawless, that it almost never glitches. Yet sometimes, in moments of stress or fatigue, meditation or trauma, the illusion flickers. You might feel unmoored, as if watching yourself from outside, or experience a sense of disconnection, as if your body were being piloted by a stranger. In these cracks, you catch a glimpse of the truth. The you of a moment ago is gone, never to return. Only memory makes the present self believe in the myth of persistence. Split brain studies reveal the mechanics of this process. When the hemispheres of the brain are separated, each half produces its own version of I, each convinced of its own authenticity, each piecing together a narrative from the fragments it receives. But even in the unbroken brain, the handoff happens in every heartbeat, every flash of sensation, every thought that arises and is gone. The actors trade places so rapidly, so perfectly, that the illusion is absolute. The mind is a stage where the play of self never ends, but the cast changes in every scene. Some philosophers argue that this glitch is not a flaw, but a feature, a way for consciousness to persist in the face of chaos and change. By creating the illusion of continuity, the mind shields itself from the terror of annihilation, from the realization that all we are, in truth, a succession of fleeting witnesses to our own lives. The story of me is written moment by moment, each new self borrowing the script, convinced that it is the original, never knowing how many have come before or how many will follow. In certain rare moments, anesthesia, blackout, the dreamless sleep, you might sense the handoff more clearly. Awareness ceases, then returns, and you accept the story of before as your own, never questioning the gap. The continuity is only as strong as memory allows. Amnesia, trauma, or the slow drift of dementia can reveal how fragile the illusion truly is. When memory falters, the self unravels, and the handoff is laid bare. So what are we? Really, a line of actors, each one stepping forward to speak their lines, then bowing out forever, remembered only through the echoes left behind. We are the sum of all our temporary selves, bound together by the threads of memory and belief. The I of now is the only I that will ever exist. But memory carries the torch, makes the handoff, tells the story of a continuous life. The glitch is never noticed, until it is. Next time you catch yourself in a reverie, or lose track of time, or awaken from a dream you cannot recall, pause and wonder, who was you before and who is you now? The continuity is an act of faith, a gift of memory, a play that never truly ends. In the heart of every moment, a new self steps forward, ready to carry the torch, convinced it is the only one who ever lived. And when its time is up, another takes its place, reading the script, feeling the same heart, believing in the same myth of persistence. A chain of consciousness, handoff after handoff, in a glitch so smooth you will never truly notice that you are always brand new. The self-awareness feedback. There is a quiet paradox at the heart of every mind, a recursive loop that spins, often unnoticed, beneath even your simplest moments of thought. It begins the first time you catch your reflection, the first time you sense yourself as an object in the world. From that instant, you are divided, the watcher and the watched. The more you observe yourself, the more you change in response. Each layer of observation distorts until, eventually, the self being observed no longer reflects the original observer at all. Only the echo, the distortion, the endless feedback loop of self-awareness amplifying itself into something unrecognizable. It happens in ways both subtle and profound. You look in a mirror, and your face rearranges itself under the scrutiny, not just in expression, but in meaning. You rehearse how you might sound to others, practicing words and gestures, until the performance takes over. Even alone, your mind's eye remains active, an invisible audience judging, shaping, reflecting every thought and action. Are you being honest, or are you playing to the observer within? The distinction blurs, then vanishes. Every act of introspection, every moment spent analyzing your motives or reliving your past, deepens the feedback. At first, you believe you are growing more authentic, more self-aware, but the mirror is not passive. Each time you look, you become more aware of the looking. You see yourself seeing yourself. The reflection thickens, bends, and eventually splits from what it was supposed to reveal. Psychologists and mystics have both grappled with this effect. Some call it the observer effect of the psyche, where the act of paying attention to your thoughts or emotions inevitably alters them. Others liken it to quantum mechanics, where the measurement of a system changes its state, forever contaminating the purity of what was before. In the world of the mind, the experimenter and the subject are never truly separate. The attempt to pin down who you are is like trying to grab water. The tighter your grip, the more it slips away. Consider the performer who learns to inhabit a role so fully that the original self fades, or the social media user who, in curating an online persona, becomes more and more a product of likes, comments, and outside attention, until even their private moments are shaped by imagined spectators. Or the thinker, lost in analysis, who finds that every genuine impulse is now shadowed by the question, why am I doing this? Who is watching me do it? Life becomes a hall of mirrors, each reflection slightly warped, until the original is lost in the maze. Sometimes the feedback loop spirals into anxiety, even madness. You become trapped by the sense that nothing you do is truly you, that every gesture, every choice is shaped by the anticipation of how it will be perceived. The self splits into layers, actor and audience, creator and critic, each watching, each changing in response to being watched. There is no stable ground, only the endless folding and refolding of identity upon itself. In these moments, authenticity becomes a puzzle with no solution, a riddle you cannot escape by thinking more deeply, only by letting go. And yet, the feedback is not always a curse. Self-awareness is the source of growth, of change, of becoming more than you were. In seeing yourself from the outside, you gain perspective, the ability to question, to challenge, to choose something new. But this gift is double-edged. It is so easy to fall in love with the reflection, to mistake the observer's gaze for the true self, to become the performance and forget the original impulse. The world's greatest artists and thinkers have often lived at the edge of this loop, able to step outside themselves and see anew, but always at risk of vanishing into their own mirrors. There are moments of liberation, brief, electric flashes when the observer falls silent and you simply are. Flow states, moments of awe, deep love or terror. These break the feedback, collapsing the loop for a heartbeat. In these times, the boundary between watcher and watched dissolves, and the self exists whole, unfiltered, real. But always inevitably, the loop reforms. You return to the dance, to the shifting balance between presence and performance, between authenticity and self-consciousness. What, then, is the way forward? Some say the key is to observe without attachment, to watch your thoughts and actions as clouds passing in a vast sky, never clinging, never identifying fully with the image. Others embrace the performance, crafting selves with awareness and intention, making art from the feedback itself. Perhaps the only certainty is this: the more you observe yourself, the more you change. And the more you change, the harder it becomes to know what is true, what is distortion, what is observer, and what is observed. So the next time you catch yourself in the act of watching, of analyzing, of wondering who you really are, pause, notice the loop, feel its tug, and ask, is this self the original, or the reflection, or the echo of all that has come before? In the end, the self is not a fixed point but a moving pattern, a wave forever reshaped by the act of looking, an endless dance between the eye and the image it longs to see. The actor without stage. You close the door behind you, and the world outside dissolves into silence. Alone at last, you feel a subtle relief, the hush of being unseen. But even now, in the quiet of your own room, there's a strange awareness, a faint sense of being observed. By whom, you can't quite say. You move, you think. You react as if your every gesture still matters, as if invisible eyes linger at the edges of the moment. Why do you sit a certain way? Pause before you speak out loud. Rehearse your own thoughts as if for an audience that does not exist. This is the secret life of the actor without stage, a consciousness haunted by the simulation of witnesses, forever performing, forever seeking validation from shadows that never quite step into the light. From childhood, you are taught to care how you appear, to manage how you sound, to measure the effect you have on others. Parents watch, teachers grade, friends judge, strangers pass silent verdicts with every glance. The pressure to perform becomes the backdrop of your experience, a subtle contract. Exist, but exist in a way that will be seen, known, remembered. Even in solitude, this conditioning lingers. Alone, you still monitor yourself. Narrate your life as if your private moments are scenes in a film, your thoughts the lines of a hidden script. There is always an imagined audience, silent but powerful, shaping who you allow yourself to become. Sometimes, this audience takes on a shape, a parent's disappointed gaze, a lover's absent approval, the faceless crowd of a world that demands coherence from the chaos inside you. Other times, it is formless, a vague sense that you must act as if someone is watching, even when no one is near. You become both performer and observer, both the actor and the invisible crowd, locked in a perpetual feedback loop. You brush your hair before the mirror not for practicality, but for the reassurance of being seen, if only by yourself and the phantom eyes you carry within. In the age of screens, this audience multiplies. Social media tempts you to turn every moment into content, every feeling into a caption, every private struggle into a performance for unseen witnesses. You narrate your life in status updates, curate your persona with filtered light, measure your worth by the numbers on a glowing display. Even the act of putting your phone away becomes a performance of self-control, a silent monologue for the imagined critic who measures your willpower in likes and retweets. The boundaries between private and public dissolve. Every space becomes a potential stage. But the truth is older, deeper, more universal. Even before the first word was ever written, our ancestors performed for ancestors, for spirits, for gods whose eyes could not be seen, but whose judgment was always felt. The human brain evolved not merely to survive, but to survive in tribes, to anticipate the gaze of others, to avoid exile by aligning inner life with the expectations of the group. We became experts in simulating the presence of witnesses, learning to hide and to reveal, to amplify and to disguise, to live with the constant echo of imagined appraisal. We are wired for an audience, even when none appears. The actor without stage lives inside you, composing silent apologies to people you will never meet, rehearsing arguments long after the moment has passed, scripting confessions for an invisible jury. Even your dreams are crowded. You win awards. You are humiliated. You are seen in all your glory and all your failure. And when you finally awake, the ghostly audience drifts back into the subconscious, but never truly leaves. It is there in the way you hesitate before dancing alone, in the way you edit your laughter, in the private words you choose carefully, as if a transcript will one day be reviewed. This hidden performance is not only a burden, it shapes your identity. You become the person you imagine others will accept, will admire, will remember. Your virtues grow strong in the presence of imagined witnesses. Your vices shrink in the shadow of their silent gaze. The self is sculpted by the choreography of attention, by the rituals of being seen, by the hope of being known. And yet, when the audience is a simulation, when the stage is only the mind's invention, the performance can never end. There is no curtain, no applause, only the eternal tension of living as both the actor and the watcher. Always restless, always unfinished. Sometimes, late at night, you may catch yourself in the act, posing in the mirror for no one, composing the next day's story in the silence of your mind. You might wonder, who am I performing for? What would remain if the audience vanished, if the lights went out for good? Is there a real me beneath the layers of performance, or is the self only ever the sum of the roles played for countless imagined spectators? The question haunts every moment of genuine solitude. When you try to drop the act, you find another layer of acting. The attempt to be natural, to be unobserved, is itself a new performance, a new role for the audience within. But there is a quiet freedom in noticing the actor without stage. The moment you see the loop for what it is, a mind simulating an audience to validate its own narrative, you can let the script relax, the performance soften. You can allow moments of unscripted existence to slip through, brief and bright. The laugh that escapes, the tears that fall unseen, the movement of your body for no other reason than it feels right. In those moments, the self is not abolished, but revealed as something lighter, more fluid, less beholden to the endless gaze of the invisible crowd. The world will always tempt you back to the stage. You will find yourself performing again, narrating again, reaching for the comfort of being seen, even by the audience you have created yourself. But now, you know the trick. You see the process. You can choose, sometimes, to step off the stage, if only for a breath, and let yourself exist outside the script, beyond the echo of invisible eyes. So, next time you catch yourself acting for no one, pausing before an imagined audience, smile gently at the mind's cleverness. The actor is not false. The stage is not a prison. But freedom begins when you notice that you are both the play and the playwright, both the watcher and the watched. In the silence between performances, you might just glimpse the quiet truth that you are here, unobserved, unwitnessed, alive, not for the crowd, but for yourself. The free will illusion. There's a sensation, intimate and electric, in believing you are the author of your own life. You pause, consider, and choose. The next word, the next move, the next dream to chase or let die. But what if this sensation is just the cleverest illusion of all? What if your choices are only echoes? Your freedom a script written before you even become aware of it. The free will illusion, an unsettling truth lurking in the shadows of every decision. Your mind, convinced it holds the pen, narrates a story already half told by the silent machinery of the brain. Neuroscientists have peered behind the curtain, watching the flicker of neurons as people ponder the simplest acts, lifting a finger, selecting a color, speaking a name. The results are unsettling. The brain's readiness potential, the first electrical stirrings of a decision, appears seconds before a person feels themselves choosing. By the time you become conscious of your intention, the cascade of biological and psychological events that will shape your action has already begun. Free will, as you experience it, is a voiceover, a retrospective commentary layered atop an unfolding sequence you did not truly author. Think of the countless factors that shape each choice: genetics, memory, mood, culture, the weather, a phrase overheard in passing, a childhood wound you forgot you carried. These variables swirl beneath awareness, tipping the balance in 1,000 invisible ways. You feel certainty, yet certainty is just the mind's trick. The smoothing over of chaos into a story that feels coherent, purposeful, and yours. How many times have you tried to justify a choice after the fact, finding reasons that make sense only in hindsight? How often do you feel a decision rising within you, as if summoned from nowhere, before your conscious mind seizes on it and claims it as its own? The illusion of free will is necessary, perhaps even beautiful. It grants meaning to suffering and triumph, infuses responsibility into every act, makes love and ambition and regret possible. Without it, life might feel hollow, each moment predetermined, the path ahead already mapped. Yet, the evidence keeps mounting. Consciousness, it seems, is not the author but the narrator, witnessing a procession of thoughts, feelings, and impulses that emerge from the deep machinery of mind and world. Your sense of agency, the sensation of steering, is a trick played by the brain, convincing you that you are the pilot, not the passenger. There are moments, rare and disconcerting, when this illusion flickers. You catch yourself reaching for an object before you decide to do so. Words spill from your mouth before you choose them. Sometimes, under the weight of trauma or fatigue, your actions feel alien, as if commanded by some stranger inside. In these moments, you glimpse the true architecture of the self, a complex network, a shifting field of influences and triggers, where choice is a ripple, not a spark. Does this mean you are a machine, doomed to enact a script you cannot change? Perhaps not. Some thinkers argue that the recognition of the illusion is the first freedom, the humility to see yourself as both wave and ocean, shaped and shaping, a consciousness that can at least bear witness to the mysterious origins of its own behavior. Others find solace in the randomness that laces through all things, a chaos that makes every outcome both inevitable and surprising. Still, the next time you feel yourself at a crossroads, pause. Notice the flicker of impulse, the way the choice seems to crystallize from somewhere just out of sight. Ask yourself, where did that come from? Who or what is choosing here? Listen closely, and you may hear the subtle machinery working in the dark, assembling your reality before your conscious mind can even claim credit. The free will illusion is not a cage, but a mirror, a chance to see yourself as you truly are, both actor and audience, both story and storyteller, carried forward by the ancient unseen rhythms of the brain, forever dreaming that you alone are in command. The thought stream Mirage. Listen for a moment to the voice inside your head, the constant narrator, the ceaseless commentator, the secret stream of words that shapes your days. It feels so intimate, so absolutely yours. This inner monologue that reflects your fears, your hopes, your little victories, and buried regrets. You think it is you, but what if it is not? What if this voice, so persuasive and personal, is only a mirage, a pattern of memory, language, and repetition, a ghost voice expertly wearing your face? This is the thought stream mirage, the illusion that your inner commentary is the real you, when in truth it may be little more than echoes and programming, a stitched-together theater of fragments from all the words you've ever heard and all the judgments you've ever made. It is the deepest mask, the closest imposter, and the most trusted confidant, all conjured by habit, emotion, and the relentless engine of memory. Imagine the morning. You awaken to a stream of thoughts, lists, worries, plans, a song stuck in your head. You listen because you have always listened, never questioning the voice's authority. It urges you out of bed, narrates your reflection in the mirror, judges your body, recalls yesterday's failures, anticipates today's struggles. All day it murmurs, sometimes an ally, sometimes a saboteur, never truly silent, always filling the space where self-awareness might grow. But pause and look closer. How much of this voice is new, and how much is simply repetition? How many times has it replayed the same self-doubt, the same anger, the same longing? How often does it borrow its language from parents, teachers, old friends, or lovers? It recycles phrases, habits of criticism or praise, the tones of authority figures long gone. Even your deepest beliefs are hand-me-downs, worn smooth by repetition until they feel inevitable. This ghost voice may not be yours at all, but a collage, stitched together by a mind desperate for stability, for identity, for the illusion of control. Consider the moments when the monologue falters, when shock or beauty or pain strikes so deeply that words fail. For a heartbeat, there is silence, a gap in the stream. You feel, purely and fully, before the voice rushes back in, interpreting, labeling, reducing the rawness to something manageable. You realize, in these rare moments, that the voice is not the experience itself, but the story you tell about the experience. A map, never the territory. Some people become trapped by their own thought stream, haunted by intrusive commentary they cannot escape. The mind becomes a theater of repetition, anxiety, rumination, a haunted house where the same ghost keeps reappearing, wearing new masks, but always whispering the same doubts. The pain is real, but the source is a mirage, memory and habit reciting lines until you mistake the script for reality. Yet, there is another danger, the comforting thought stream, the one that flatters, reassures, and distracts you from truth. It wraps you in soft stories, keeps you safely numb, and resists every effort to see the world as it really is. You float on its current, believing you are steering the course, when in fact you are only drifting, carried by the force of habit and the language you have learned to love. You may wonder, if the inner voice is a mirage, who am I beneath it? Is there a real me behind the words, or am I only the sum of my memories, habits, and language? Some traditions urge silence, to meditate, to watch the thoughts arise and pass, to learn that the watcher is separate from the stream. In those moments of quiet, you sense another layer, pure awareness before the voice, beneath the stories. It is not a voice at all, but an openness, a witness that is impossible to name. The thought stream mirage is not your enemy. It is your mind's way of navigating chaos, making sense of the world, rehearsing the past, and preparing for the future. But to believe it is you, unchanging, absolute, the sole author of your life, is to become lost in a hall of mirrors, where every reflection wears your face, but none can answer the deeper question, what lies behind the glass? There are ways to wake from the mirage, even if only for a moment. Notice the patterns in your own narration. Who taught you to speak to yourself this way? Where do these words come from? Challenge the script. Interrupt the repetition. Learn to sit in silence, to feel the world directly before the story begins. The more you question, the thinner the mirage becomes, the more you glimpse the vastness beyond the commentary. And when you return to your inner voice, as you always will, You can greet it with gentleness, knowing it is not your master, but a tool, a servant that can help or harm, depending on how you listen. You are more than your thoughts, more than your stories, more than the stream that runs through your days. Beneath it all, you are the awareness that watches, the silence before the first word, the presence that endures even when every ghost voice has faded. So tonight, as the thought stream drifts and chatters, remember, it is not the only voice. You are not merely the sum of your narration, not doomed to repeat the same lines forever. The real you is spacious, hidden in the silent spaces, waiting patiently behind the mirage, ready to be rediscovered, one quiet moment at a time. The introspective time trap. We live our lives convinced that self-reflection is the gateway to truth, that by turning inward, by examining the shape of our own thoughts, we can finally meet the real I. The world outside may be a storm, but inside, in the quiet theater of introspection, we believe we stand face to face with our truest self. But what if this is the grandest illusion of all? What if every time you try to look within, to interrogate your heart or analyze your motives, you are only meeting a ghost, a version of you already consigned to the past? This is the paradox of the introspective time trap, that to reflect is always to look backward, never to stand in the present, never to meet yourself as you truly are. Imagine the mind as a hall of mirrors, each one reflecting the you that just was, never the you that is. Thoughts arrive not as real-time messages, but as echoes, signals still traveling across the synapses, waves not yet collapsed into now. By the time you've asked yourself a question, who am I? What do I want? The answer is always a snapshot, a photograph already a moment old, the living self having moved on. The act of introspection is not communion, but archaeology, digging through the sediments of mind, uncovering fragments, never the immediate, never the original. This delay is not a flaw, but a function of consciousness itself. The machinery of awareness is intricate, slow, and recursive. To observe yourself is to split yourself, the observer and the observed, forever separated by a chasm of milliseconds. Your brain must first record the experience, then retrieve it, then replay it for your inner eye. By the time the curtain rises and you step into the spotlight of self-examination, the actor you hope to meet has already exited the stage, replaced by another, slightly changed, slightly older, never quite the same. Think of those moments of deep reflection, late at night, eyes closed, replaying the day's decisions, analyzing feelings, trying to pin down the truth of your own heart. You think you're catching yourself in the act, but really, you're decoding memories, reassembling a narrative from traces already etched into the past. Even your feelings are artifacts, shaped by hormones and neurons that have already fired. The harder you look, the more you realize you are chasing a ghost, the living self always a step ahead, vanishing as soon as you turn your attention toward it. There are times when this delay is almost palpable. In moments of shock or pain, when your mind struggles to keep up, you sense the lag, the words you wish you'd said, the emotions you can't quite name, the understanding that comes only after the fact. In these moments, the time trap is laid bare. You are always reacting to the person you were, never to the person you are. Decisions are post-mortems, not prophecies. Even your regrets are aimed at a version of yourself already lost to time. Neuroscience backs this up. The very act of self-awareness is a recursive process, a loop of attention and memory. To reflect is to wait. Sensory information must be processed, integrated, and fed back into consciousness before it can be examined. The present moment, the now, is forever slipping through your fingers, always processed, never possessed. Your sense of self is stitched together from moments already dead, each new I rising to awareness just as the last one fades. Meditation, too, reveals the gap. Practitioners describe the fleeting nature of self, the impossibility of grasping the true now. Each breath, each thought, each attempt at awareness is always behind, always reaching for a self that cannot be caught. Enlightenment, in its most honest description, is the acceptance of this chase, the understanding that you will never truly meet yourself head-on. Only greet your reflection as it recedes into memory. This trap is not a prison, but a paradox. To be conscious is to be forever slightly behind, forever looking at the wake your mind leaves in time's river. The stories you tell yourself, the judgments you make, even the changes you hope to enact, are always about a self already gone. The hope for transformation is the hope to catch up, to finally intersect with the present. But the lines never meet. You are the ghost in your own machine, the echo chasing itself through empty corridors. Yet, within this trap, there is a strange, quiet beauty. The fact that you can reflect it all, that you can remember, regret, aspire, means that you are more than a point in time. You are a story, woven from countless vanished selves, each one leaving an imprint, a lesson, a dream. The introspective time trap is not just a flaw in perception, but the birthplace of wisdom and empathy. To see yourself in the rearview mirror is to recognize the distance you've traveled, the ways you've changed, the selves you've outgrown and mourned. So the next time you close your eyes and turn inward, searching for the truth of who you are, remember, you are always looking into the past, never meeting the now directly. You are the detective and the suspect, the observer and the observed, bound together by the impossible lag of consciousness. The introspective time trap will never let you meet your living self, but it will show you where you've been, who you've become, and what it means to be always just behind the moment you most want to hold. In the end, perhaps this is the deepest mystery of all, that the self is both lost and found in the act of reflection, forever a memory, forever just out of reach, yet always somehow enough to keep searching for. The frozen present fallacy. You move through life anchored in the relentless confidence of the present. Each moment feels absolute. This is now, you say, this is real. But what if the now you trust is a mirage, a carefully constructed illusion rendered just behind the edge of reality's true unfolding? What if your sense of presence is a frozen frame in a film that's already moved on, an echo pieced together by a brain always trailing the world by precious milliseconds? This is the frozen present fallacy, the comforting but mistaken belief that you ever truly inhabit the moment, when in truth, the now is always an edited replay, a delayed live stream, a memory masquerading as reality. It is a fallacy so subtle, so intimately woven into experience, that you rarely suspect it. You snap your fingers and feel the sensation instantly. But beneath that seamless feeling lies a chain of lag and edits. The nerves in your skin fire, the electrical signals snake up your arm, cross synaptic chasms, and only then, with the delay of ancient hardware, does your brain assemble the experience. It is the same with everything you see, every word you hear, every gust of wind across your cheek. Each is a data packet, arriving just late, stitched together into the story you call now. Neuroscience has chased these delays down to the millisecond. When light strikes your retina, the signal races through neural networks before resolving into color, shape, meaning. When someone speaks, their words must pass through layers of translation, vibration to impulse to interpretation, before they land in your awareness. Every action, every perception is processed, buffered, sometimes even held back, while your brain waits for the rest of the data to catch up. In a world of millions of moving parts, the brain acts as editor and producer, splicing scenes together, filling gaps, smoothing over the cracks so reality feels unbroken. The result is an illusion, the frozen present. You experience life as a single, uninterrupted flow, unaware that the truth is closer to a delayed broadcast, one your brain has labored to make seamless, always hiding the edits. This delay isn't just a technical quirk, it is the price of coherence. Without it, the world would be chaos, each sense out of sync, every thought and action fractured by latency. The frozen present fallacy is your mind's greatest magic trick, a sleight of hand that sacrifices truth for stability. Think about catching a ball. You believe you are reacting in the moment, but the ball's path is calculated from light that struck your eye milliseconds ago. By the time you reach for it, the true position has already shifted. Yet, you almost never notice. Your brain predicts, fills in, erases mistakes, and gives you the unwavering confidence that you're acting in real time. This is why athletes speak of the game slowing down when they are in the zone. They are living in the delay, surfing the brain's predictions with skill, catching echoes as if they were reality itself. The consequences of this fallacy are everywhere. Drivers brake for obstacles that have already changed position. Musicians synchronize to rhythms that exist just ahead of awareness. Arguments erupt over words spoken in split-second lags, with each participant convinced of the precise timing of events, neither realizing they are each working from slightly different versions of the present. Even memories are shaped by these delays, as the brain reconstructs not only what happened, but when, forging a story that is as much wishful thinking as it is lived fact. The frozen present is also what keeps you sane. If you could perceive the real-time cacophony of your senses, if every signal arrived as it happened, the result would be an overwhelming storm. No order, no sequence, no meaning. You would be lost in a storm of data, paralyzed by the impossibility of assembling a world. The lag is a kindness, an evolutionary necessity, a subtle layer of insulation between you and the world's true speed. But there are cracks. Sometimes, in moments of trauma or ecstasy, the lag falters and you glimpse the raw, unfiltered flow. Time seems to slow. The world bends, and you become acutely aware that you are not quite in step with reality. These moments are rare, often unsettling, but they reveal the hidden machinery of the mind, the machinery that edits the film of your life in real time and presents it as the smooth, infallible now. Philosophers have long wondered if anyone ever truly lives in the present, or if the self is always lagging, always chasing a ghost. The frozen present fallacy suggests the answer is clear. You are always late, always seeing what is already past, always living in a world rendered safe by the brain's delay. It is a haunting truth, but also a freeing one. For if the present is an illusion, then the future and the past are closer than you think, separated only by the thinnest buffer of processing, a veil that can be lifted, if only for an instant. So the next time you marvel at the feeling of now, at the undeniable presence of the moment, remember that you are living in a memory, a delayed reflection assembled with care by a mind that loves you enough to keep you whole. The true present is always just beyond reach, a frozen frame, a live stream forever, a few milliseconds behind, the echo of reality gently unfolding while you watch, believe, and call it real. The blanked awareness paradox. You move through your day convinced you are seeing, feeling, and knowing everything that happens around you. The world appears seamless, continuous. A film with no missing frames, a page with no skipped lines. You trust your eyes, your ears, your very sense of presence to carry you, moment to moment, through a world that is always there, always whole. But beneath that confidence lies one of the strangest truths about consciousness. Most of what you experience, you never truly notice. Your mind, master illusionist, quietly fills in blank spaces, masking the gaps, patching the holes, creating the smooth illusion of an unbroken, stable reality. This is the blanked awareness paradox. The realization that the world you think you inhabit is not the world you actually perceive, but the best guess of a mind working overtime to fill in what you will never see. Every second, your senses are bombarded with more information than you can ever consciously process. The sweep of color in your periphery, the low hum of machines, the feeling of your own weight against the chair. These are registered, but rarely rise to awareness. Your mind must triage, deciding what to spotlight and what to leave behind, editing your experience like an unseen director. The result is a story so convincing you never question its edits. A glance at your phone, a step down the street, a conversation drifting in and out. Each is a tapestry woven from threads both real and imagined, stitched together so quickly and smoothly that you never notice the seams. Consider the experience of driving a familiar route. Your hands steer, your feet press pedals, your eyes scan the road. And yet, when you arrive, whole stretches of the journey have vanished into oblivion. You remember leaving, you remember arriving, but the middle blurs into nothing. Where was your awareness? Who drove the car when you were gone? The mind fills in the blank with routine, with confidence, with the certainty that you were always present. But you were not. Huge portions of living are carried out in a fog, automated, forgotten even as they happen. Still, the story feels continuous, the self unbroken. Look closer, and the paradox deepens. The eyes themselves are blind in places. Every human retina has a hole, a blind spot, where no light is detected. And yet, you never see emptiness. The mind quietly fills in the gap, painting over the absence with borrowed detail from the world around. The illusion is so perfect you would never suspect the lie. Extend this to every sense, every memory, every passing moment, and you begin to realize how little of reality is truly received, how much is fabricated on the fly. Every moment you blink, the world vanishes for an instant, and you never notice. When your eyes dart in a saccade, the world blurs and blanks, yet your awareness stitches it together, discarding the confusion and giving you a movie of endless flow. You do not see the jump cuts, the flickers, the discontinuities. Your mind's greatest trick is not simply perception. It is the seamless erasure of everything it can't quite perceive, the confident splicing of consciousness into a story with no holes. This patchwork of awareness is not just a flaw, it is essential to your survival. If you noticed everything, if every flicker and gap screamed for attention, your mind would dissolve into chaos, a blizzard of distraction. So you live in a curated world, tailored for your needs, your anxieties, your desires. The price for this curation is the loss of most of what actually happens. The laughter in the next room occasionally, the curtain slips. You notice you have no memory of the last page you read, or the last few minutes of conversation. You realize you've been on autopilot, your thoughts drifting, your actions running without conscious oversight. Sometimes, in moments of shock or beauty, awareness snaps into focus, and for a heartbeat, the world feels hyper-real. Colors sharper, sounds deeper, time slower. But this intensity cannot last. Soon the mind resumes its quiet editing, smoothing the world back into an unbroken surface. Some scientists believe consciousness itself is mostly post hoc, a process that comes after perception, narrating the story rather than living it. By the time you notice a sensation, your mind has already made sense of it, cleaned it up, and inserted it into the ongoing tale of you. Awareness is the last guest to the party, but the only one who believes they were there from the beginning. The blanked awareness paradox is this. You trust your experience absolutely, while living inside a story built from gaps, guesses, and reconstruction. This paradox shapes everything about you. You remember only fragments the shifting weight in your spine, the dozens of small events that form the background hum of reality. You forget them instantly, even as they shape your mood, your reactions, your very sense of self. Yet, the illusion is rarely perfect. Occasionally, the curtain slips. You notice you have no memory of the last page you read, or the last few minutes of conversation. You realize you've been on autopilot, your thoughts drifting, your actions running without conscious oversight. Sometimes, in moments of shock or beauty, awareness snaps into focus, and for a heartbeat, the world feels hyper-real. Colors sharper, sounds deeper, time slower. But this intensity cannot last. Soon the mind resumes its quiet editing, smoothing the world back into an unbroken surface. Some scientists believe consciousness itself is mostly post hoc, a process that comes after perception, narrating the story rather than living it. By the time you notice a sensation, your mind has already made sense of it, cleaned it up, and inserted it into the ongoing tale of you. Awareness is the last guest to the party, but the only one who believes they were there from the beginning. The blanked awareness paradox is this. You trust your experience absolutely, while living inside a story built from gaps, guesses, and reconstruction. This paradox shapes everything about you. You remember only fragments of your childhood, but believe in the continuity of your identity. You see only what your mind expects and fill the rest with borrowed images, learned scripts, background noise. When something truly novel breaks through, a moment of awe, a strange face in a crowd, a sudden change in routine, you feel the rupture in your awareness, the shock of real contact with a world that is always more than you can perceive. In those moments, you glimpse the truth. Most of reality is blank to you, yet you live as if you see all. There is a strange beauty in this blindness. It is not emptiness, but a space for dreaming, for improvisation, for becoming. The gaps in awareness allow for fluidity, for creativity, for the rewriting of stories. Still, it is humbling to realize how much is always missing, how much of what you call your life is a masterpiece of omission, a tapestry of plausible lies. To know this is not to despair, but to marvel, to see your mind as both magician and audience, weaving a seamless world out of fragments and blanks. So, Next time you are caught in a moment of forgetfulness, of lost time, of sudden awareness that you were gone and now have returned, pause and smile at the mind's cleverness. The world you inhabit is not the world as it is, but the world as you are able to dream it. Blank spaces woven with stories, absences filled with memory, reality always smoother and richer than your senses could ever deliver. The blanked awareness. Paradox is the secret architecture of your consciousness, the illusion of presence, the gift of forgetting, the wonder of a world forever half invisible, and always somehow your own. The consciousness zoom problem. Consciousness is the miracle you take for granted, the voice whispering, "I am," in the back of your mind. The silent presence woven through all your days and nights. But what exactly is it? This awareness that feels so solid, so undeniable. You try to grasp it, to pin it down, but the closer you look, the more it slips through your fingers. This is the consciousness zoom problem, the existential vertigo that arises when you try to find yourself by zooming in or out too far, only to discover that at every scale, the you seek dissolves into something else. Zoom in. Trace a fingertip along your skin, marvel at the pulse beneath, then dig deeper. Beneath the surface, there are cells, each alive in its own way, blind and indifferent to your dreams. Dive deeper still. Synapses, axons, dendrites, a tangled forest of neurons sparking and firing, orchestrating sensation and thought with no awareness of the story those thoughts create. Zoom again. Molecules, atoms, the blur of quantum uncertainty where even location means almost nothing. At this scale, there is no room for you, no will, no story, only chemical exchanges and probability. A busy nothingness far removed from the warmth of your experience. Now zoom out. You leave the skull, the body, the city. Your life becomes a pattern in the lives of millions, then billions, a fleeting data point in the rise and fall of civilizations. Pull farther back. Humanity becomes a thin scum on a blue marble, life pulsing for a blink in cosmic time. Farther still, and Earth itself shrinks, a memory in the spiral arms of a galaxy, itself just one among trillions. The universe continues to expand, vast and cold, indifferent to your heartbeat or your childhood memories. At either extreme, consciousness vanishes. Look too close, and you are neurons. Look too wide, and you are a planet's echo, an afterimage flickering in the memory of a star. The self that felt so immediate and vital is nowhere to be found. Where then do you exist? Are you a pattern, a process, a point of view, or just the intersection of billions of causes, a temporary knot in the flow of energy, waiting to be untied? You are not alone in this confusion. Throughout history, philosophers and mystics have tried to locate the self. Is it a soul, a brain state, a field of information? Science slices the mind thinner and thinner, but no amount of reductionism delivers the solid I you feel so deeply. Spiritual traditions tell stories of oneness, of egoless awareness, but these dissolve the self in a different direction, expanding consciousness so wide that it becomes everything and nothing at once. Sometimes, you sense the zoom problem in daily life. You lose yourself in a task, become a pair of hands, a set of eyes. Hours pass in a blur, your awareness contracted to a point. Other times, you are overwhelmed by context, your place in history, your role in a family, a species, a world on the brink. In both cases, the sense of me grows thin, stretched or shrunk until you are barely there at all. The zoom dial slips, and the narrative of self flickers like a faulty transmission. There are moments, rare and precious, when you feel balanced in the middle scale, neither too close nor too far. You are yourself, not just a network of cells, not just a citizen of a galaxy, but a conscious being with memories, hopes, regrets. You experience music, laughter, the ache of longing, the joy of a quiet morning. In these moments, the miracle of awareness feels simple and obvious, but it is a delicate balance. Too much scrutiny, and the spell breaks. The consciousness zoom problem is a reminder of your place in the universe. Not too small, not too large, but precariously poised at a scale where meaning is possible. Zoom too far, and the self dissolves. Zoom just right, and the world glows with possibility. Perhaps this is why so many spiritual practices emphasize presence, mindfulness, attention to the here and now. The I exists, if it exists at all, in the Goldilocks zone between neuron and cosmos, a story held together by memory, attention, and the fragile magic of perspective. Yet, there is something humbling, even beautiful, about the dissolution at the edges. You are not an island, isolated and eternal, but a pattern arising from countless smaller patterns, a whisper among galaxies, a spark among atoms. The vertigo of zooming in or out is not a trap, but an invitation to see yourself as both miraculous and ordinary, both central and peripheral, both fleeting and infinite. So, the next time you feel lost in the swirl of thought, or anxious about your place in the world, remember the consciousness zoom problem. You are not only the sum of your neurons, nor just a ripple in the universe's endless sea. You are the point of view, the consciousness poised between scales, able to find meaning in the midst of mystery. In the end, the self is not a thing to be found at any one level, but a process, a dance, a shimmering awareness suspended miraculously between the micro and the macro, forever searching for itself, forever dissolving, and forever beginning again. The biological theater illusion. Picture your mind as a vast echoing theater, a secret room at the center of all experience, draped in velvet darkness, the world beyond reduced to shadows and whispers. We walk through life certain that our consciousness sits somewhere inside us, watching, interpreting, choosing, as if an audience were always present, attentive to the drama unfolding across the stage of thought. We believe we are the observer, seated behind the eyes, isolated in a private balcony above the noise. But what if this is the grandest illusion of all? What if consciousness is not a mind in a room, but a dazzling biochemical light show, a spectacle conjured for an audience that never truly arrives? This is the riddle of the biological theater illusion, a paradox so elegant, so convincing, that nearly every human takes it for granted. From the first flicker of childhood awareness, we are conditioned to imagine the self as a spectator, a witness ensconced in the brain's secret theater, peering through the eyes, listening through the ears, issuing commands from a hidden control booth. This I feels so real, so essential, that to question it is to tremble on the edge of madness. But the deeper you look, the more the theater dissolves. The velvet curtains are membranes, the footlights are neurons firing, and the script is nothing but chemistry, dancing in the dark. Consciousness is not a show for anyone. It is the show itself, written, directed, performed, and observed all at once by the same cast of billions of cells. Each sensation, each thought, each memory is a flash of electrochemical activity, voltage surging, neurotransmitters leaping the synaptic gap, proteins folding and unfolding in silent, feverish choreography. There is no audience, no hidden mind behind the curtain. The applause, the laughter, the tears, all the pageantry are generated, felt, and interpreted by the stage itself. Consider how effortlessly the illusion persists. You close your eyes and imagine a room behind your forehead, a private cinema where memories play and thoughts unfold. You picture the real you seated in the best seat, choosing which scenes to watch, which feelings to edit, which dreams to remember. But if you look closer, there is only process, only the biological light show. The mind cannot truly step outside itself. It is the show, projected onto the walls of its own creation, forever unobserved by any external self. The scientific truth is stranger than fiction. There is no one place in the brain where consciousness happens. It is an emergent property, like a symphony arising from 1,000 instruments, or a sunset born from billions of colliding photons. Brain scans reveal not a central observer, but a web of activity, patterns blooming and fading, networks assembling and dissolving in ceaseless recursive loops. The feeling of being in a room, of watching life as if from behind the eyes, is just another illusion crafted by the mind, a trick of evolution, a necessary fiction for survival. Philosophers have struggled with this theater for centuries. Descartes pictured a homunculus, a little person inside the brain, pulling levers and reading the screens. But if you place a mind inside the mind, you must place another mind inside that mind, and so on, in an infinite regress. The illusion is so powerful that even when you know it's an illusion, you cannot escape its gravity. You still feel yourself as the audience, the I behind the show, even as reason whispers that there is only the show itself. In moments of deep introspection, meditation, near-death experience, or psychedelic trance, the illusion can flicker. Some report feeling themselves dissolve, the boundaries of the room falling away, leaving only sensation, only awareness without a watcher. It is a moment of terror and liberation, the realization that there is no fixed point behind the eyes, no mind in a room, only the ceaseless, beautiful fireworks of biology. Yet, the illusion serves its purpose. By believing in the audience, by picturing ourselves as spectators, we can reflect, choose, regret, aspire. The narrative of the self is written in the language of theater. Acts and intermissions, spotlights and shadows, applause and silence. The I at the center of it all is a role, a necessary protagonist. Even if there is no audience in the seats, the play must go on because the script is the life itself, and the theater is built from flesh and spark. Sometimes, late at night, you might feel the walls of the room dissolve, the sense that your thoughts are not watched, but simply arise, burst, vanish. In these moments, the biological theater illusion is revealed for what it is: a magnificent hallucination, self-created, self-perpetuated, necessary, and false. There is no one watching, no one separate from the lights and shadows. The self is both actor and stage, script and applause, drama and emptiness. So, the next time you close your eyes and imagine a mind in a room, ask yourself, where is the audience really? Who, if anyone, sits in the private theater of your skull? The answer is both unsettling and sublime. There is only the show, the endless biochemical ballet, consciousness lighting itself from within. The theater is empty, and yet it is full, of dreams, of memories, of life flickering and fading with every heartbeat. The show goes on, not for an audience, but because it must, because that is what it means to be alive, a mind enchanted by its own illusions, forever watching a stage where no one truly sits. The silence avoidance reflex. Imagine a room where nothing moves. The hum of appliances has stilled, the distant chatter of the world has faded, and all that's left is the dense, infinite quiet. For a moment, it feels peaceful. Then, suddenly, unbearable. Your skin prickles, your mind starts to reach. The quiet deepens, grows heavy, pressing in on your senses until it feels like a presence itself. This is the terror of pure silence, the ancient emptiness that consciousness has never been able to tolerate for long. It is in these moments, when the universe offers no input, that your brain begins to invent. Hallucinating noise, summoning memories, conjuring thoughts, anything to fill the void. This is the silence avoidance reflex, the mind's desperate instinct to prefer disturbance over the raw, unyielding weight of stillness. From the earliest days of life, disturbance has meant safety, a sign that the world is alive, that dangers can be heard, seen, anticipated. In the forest, pure silence means all creatures have fled or frozen. It is the warning before the predator strikes. In the dark, ancient mind, stillness is death's threshold. So, when external noise falls away, the mind rebels. It creates. You hear phantom footsteps in the hallway, feel vibrations that aren't there, recall songs you haven't heard in years. Even in sleep, dreams erupt to fill the silence, constructing worlds from the raw material of fear and desire. Modern life is a war against silence. We fill our days with music, with voices, with the endless scrolling stream of information. We carry devices that hum, beep, and glow, always offering something to drown out the quiet. Few realize that this compulsion is not a quirk of culture, but a deep neurological reflex. When deprived of input, locked in a soundproof chamber, isolated on a mountain, cut off from the static and chaos, the brain turns inward and invents. Researchers who have spent time in anechoic chambers, where the silence is total, report the mind's rapid spiral into hallucination. Heartbeats become thunder. Breaths roar like hurricanes. Whispers, footsteps, and distant music emerge from the vacuum, insistent and impossible to ignore. But it goes deeper. The silence avoidance reflex shapes the very way you think. When you pause, even for a moment, without input, no conversation, no screen, no sound, thoughts rush in to fill the gap. Unbidden anxieties, daydreams, half-formed ideas bubble up. The mind cannot tolerate the blank canvas. It needs disturbance, disruption, something to color the emptiness. Philosophers and mystics have long sought silence as a path to enlightenment, but the journey is always one of wrestling with the mind's relentless refusal to be still. Meditation is not about finding quiet, but about witnessing the storm the silence summons and learning to let it pass without being pulled under. In moments of forced quiet, during long nights, illness, heartbreak, or grief, the mind's inventiveness turns ruthless. Old regrets return, replayed endlessly. Fears magnify, growing monstrous in the absence of external light or sound. Sometimes, the inventions become so vivid they tip into waking dreams. Voices that seem to call your name, faces glimpsed in the dark. The sense that someone, something, is there. The reflex is not content with gentle illusions. It will create anything to keep you company, even if that company is terrifying. Yet, the avoidance of silence is not all darkness. The same reflex fuels creativity, the urge to build stories, music, and worlds. From the void, art is born, songs that echo the loneliness, stories that give shape to what cannot be named. Even conversation, at its core, is a way of keeping silence at bay, of stitching the gap between one mind and another. The chatter, the laughter, the arguments, each is a flare sent up against the cold night, proof that we exist, that we are not alone. Some seek to conquer silence, to use it as a mirror, to see what emerges when the mind can no longer run from itself. But even the greatest sages admit, true silence is almost impossible to bear for long. There is always the reflex, the inner noise, the invention of presence. You come to realize that your entire experience is shaped as much by what is missing as by what is present, that every moment of calm is surrounded by the potential for disturbance, waiting to be summoned. The silence avoidance reflex is both shield and shackle. It protects you from the terror of the void, but also robs you of the possibility of pure peace. It is the reason you keep a radio on in an empty house, why you talk to yourself, why even the smallest disturbance can be a comfort. It is why absolute quiet can feel like a threat, why you would rather listen to static than nothing at all. So the next time you find yourself alone with the silence, pay close attention. Notice the inventions of your mind, the footsteps, the music, the stories, the memories bubbling up from the deep. Ask yourself what it is you're really avoiding. In that question, you may glimpse the edge of an ancient fear, and perhaps, for a moment, make peace with the vast, living quiet that lies beyond the noise. The continuity projection fallacy. Close your eyes and reach back across the landscape of memory. Try to find the line that connects the child you once were to the person you are today. In the darkness behind your eyelids, scenes flicker. A birthday candle, a schoolyard argument, the sunlight in a room you barely recall. A face that you know was once everything to you, but is now blurred with time. You tell yourself that each image, each memory, is another bead on a necklace, the same thread, the same self, weaving through every chapter of your life. This story feels so solid, so intimate, that you rarely question it. But beneath the comfort of continuity lurks one of the deepest illusions in the architecture of mind, the continuity projection fallacy. The feeling that you are, and always have been, a single unbroken person is not a fact. It is a fiction, a story your mind invents by stitching together moments that were never truly continuous. The evidence of this illusion is everywhere, hiding in plain sight. Think of your earliest memory, the one you're sure is real. You see yourself as a child, maybe 5 or 6, in a certain place, with certain people. But notice how the details are few, the edges vague, the feelings strange and distant. The truth is that what you recall is not the moment itself, but the story you've told yourself about that moment, over and over, until it hardens into fact. Each time you remember, the memory is rewritten, colored by the present, retrofitted to fit the narrative of you that your mind needs to maintain. It is not continuity you remember, but reconstruction, a series of islands joined together by the bridges of story. What happens to all the versions of you that never made it into memory, the angry child, the secretive adolescent, the reckless or lost or wild or loving selves that blinked in and out of existence? each one as real in their time as the self you feel today. The mind edits, compresses, forgets, and retells. It weaves a thread from fragments, from moments chosen for their emotional resonance or story value. It discards the awkward gaps, the discontinuities, the abrupt changes that don't fit the plot. What remains is a beautifully plausible illusion. You, from then until now, a single self enduring through change. You feel it every day in the way you talk about your past. When I was a child, I loved the rain. I've always hated being late. I remember the moment I realized who I was. These statements are not evidence of continuity, but products of the story engine, your mind's relentless drive to make meaning, to impose coherence, to protect you from the terror of discontinuity. If you truly examined each era of your life, you'd find selves that barely know each other, thoughts that contradict, desires that vanished and were replaced, fears that evaporated without notice. But the narrative stitches it all together, smoothing the rough edges, giving you the sense that you are a single river, not a million separate pools. Sometimes, the fallacy is exposed by crisis or change, a trauma, a move, a relationship ending, a sudden new beginning. You look back and realize you do not recognize the person who lived your own memories. You read an old diary and are startled by the alien handwriting of your own mind. You see photos and feel a strange detachment, as if looking at someone else's life. In these moments, the story engine sputters and you glimpse the truth. The you of the past was a different constellation, rearranged by time, loss, and growth. The sense of sameness is revealed as a clever projection, a function, not a fact. Even in the moment, the illusion persists. You wake from a dream, briefly someone else entirely. Yet within seconds, the old self reboots, the continuity resumes, and the night's transformation is filed away as just a dream. You pass from mood to mood, from certainty to doubt, from one inner monologue to the next. Yet the sense of being oneself remains unshaken. The mind cannot bear the idea of disunity, of selves multiplying and dissolving. So it patches over the discontinuities, pretends the gaps never happened, tells you, you have always been you. But you are not a single, unbroken thread. You are a tapestry of selves, a collection of chapters with beginnings and endings invisible to the naked eye. Why does the mind do this? To keep you sane, to allow you to plan, to love, to regret, to hope. Continuity gives you the illusion of control, the comfort of identity, the ability to learn from the past and dream the future. Without it, existence would feel unmoored, too fluid to navigate. So, the mind tells a story, and you believe it. Not because it's true, but because it is necessary. The continuity projection is the silent contract of consciousness. Believe in the self, even when it is being rewritten on every page. There is beauty in this illusion, and tragedy too. It allows you to feel that the child you once were is alive inside you, that your losses and loves are connected by meaning, that you are more than a series of disconnected moments. But it also blinds you to the reality that change is not an enemy, that transformation is not a threat, that the self is not a fixed object, but a living, breathing process, a river that never truly repeats itself, even as it carves the same valley, season after season. So next time you feel the comfort of continuity, pause and notice the stitching, the edits, the gaps, the places where the story fades and is quietly replaced by invention. Smile at the mind's cleverness and let yourself love both the fiction and the reality beneath it. You are not a single continuous self. You are a mosaic, a symphony, a flickering parade of moments joined by the dream of a thread. And in that dream, you are free, not to cling to the past, but to change, to become, to rewrite yourself again and again, as only a mind alive to its own paradox ever can. The embodiment Detour. Effie, you've been taught since childhood that consciousness lives somewhere behind your eyes, a tiny spark in the darkness of your skull, a watcher, a thinker, a narrator floating above the tangled machinery of the body. But what if this is only a convenient illusion? What if the true seat of your awareness isn't a pinpoint in the brain, but a living, shifting field, woven through muscle, bone, breath, and space? This is the embodiment detour effect, The strange truth that consciousness doesn't just sit in your head, but is sculpted moment by moment by the whole of your being, detouring through the flesh and world before returning as what you call me. Pause and notice the rhythm of your breath, the slow pulse of your heart, the tension in your belly. These aren't just background processes, they are the hidden orchestra that shapes your moods, your focus, your very sense of self. Modern neuroscience tries to map consciousness as if it were pure computation, a signal encoded in gray matter. But every feeling, every thought, every act of attention is modulated by what happens in your gut, your lungs, your fingertips pressed against a table or curled into a fist. This embodied field is ancient, older than language, older than thought. The microbes in your gut send chemical signals that shape your emotions. The contraction of muscle and the stretch of tendon shift your sense of presence, your ability to act or retreat. The space around you, the distance to the wall, the heat of sunlight, the sound of distant traffic, infuses itself into your awareness, making consciousness a dance between brain, body, and world. You are not just a brain in a jar. You are a living process extended in all directions, inseparable from your physical self and the air it breathes. Think of the moments when you lose your mind to movement, dancing until thought disappears, running until only breath remains, making love or grieving until all that matters is the ache or the electricity in your bones. These are not escapes from consciousness. They are its purest form, a detour from the abstract to the embodied, from the watcher in the head to the animal in the world. You come home to yourself, not as a story or a stream of thought, but as a field of sensation and power, alive in every cell. Yet, the illusion persists. Society trains you to live in your head, to ignore the wisdom of the body, to mistrust the signals that rise from belly, chest, and spine. You learn to override the detour, to push on through fatigue, to silence the gut feeling, to treat your body as a machine for carrying your mind from place to place. But the cost is enormous. Anxiety that can't be named, alienation from your own desires, a haunting sense that life is happening at a distance. The embodiment detour effect is a challenge to science, to culture, to the way you live. It asks you to imagine consciousness not as a lone candle in a dark room, but as a constellation of lights moving through the landscape of flesh. It is the tightening in your stomach before a difficult conversation, the blush of shame that radiates through skin and muscle, the grounding calm that comes from planting bare feet on the earth. It is your awareness rising and falling with the breath, expanding when you stretch, dissolving into the warm dark of sleep. Some traditions have always known this truth. Ancient yogis and martial artists trained the mind by training the breath and posture. Mystics found enlightenment in walking, chanting, kneeling, not just in silence and thought. Even the modern sciences of trauma and therapy recognize that healing is not only a mental act, but a reclamation of the body's wisdom, a returning of consciousness to its full domain. Ask yourself, where do you feel most alive? When the mind is lost in worry, it feels scattered, abstract, impossible to grasp. But in moments of embodied presence, you are more than a mind. You are a living field, humming with sensation, immersed in the world. The I who witnesses becomes the I who breathes, who moves, who feels gravity, weight, space, time. You cannot think your way into being. You must live it, moment by moment, through every detour of the body. Your consciousness is not trapped in your skull, but flows out into the world through every gesture and sigh, every hunger and ache, every rush of blood and electric shiver. The body is not a vessel for the mind. The mind is a process of the body, shaped by every detour, every return. So, the next time you feel lost in your thoughts, remember to come home to your breath, your spine, your hands on the table, or reaching for another. Notice how your body shapes your attention, your memory, your sense of possibility. The embodiment detour effect is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. You are more than you think. Wider, deeper, older, and far more alive than the voice in your head ever lets you remember. Embrace the detour. Let consciousness be a field, not a spark. Let yourself be fully, wildly, beautifully embodied. Awake not just in mind, but in every trembling, breathing, living cell. The concept container collapse. We walk through life certain that we know what we feel, what we think, who we are. We build the architecture of mind with labeled rooms. Anger here, joy there, sorrow and love in their appointed corners. We give our emotions names, our thoughts definitions, and imagine each as an object, contained, graspable, set apart from the chaos of experience. But what if this is only a comforting fiction? What if every thought, every feeling is a cloud in constant motion, a shapeshifter that laughs at the idea of boundaries, forever eluding capture? This is the secret of the concept container collapse, that the jars we use to hold our inner world are always inevitably cracked and the contents forever escaping. Picture your mind as a gallery of glass vessels. You reach for the emotion of sadness, hoping to inspect it, to know it fully. But the moment you lift the jar, the contents swirl, shifting from sorrow to nostalgia to something nameless, a mist that refuses analysis. You grasp at a thought, expecting a fixed form, but it slips through your mental fingers, turning from certainty to doubt, from clarity to confusion. The illusion of containment is seductive. It gives us the confidence to say, "I am angry," or "I know what I want." But in truth, these words are only labels hastily affixed to a moving target. Consider how quickly feelings mutate. The love you felt in the morning may turn bittersweet by nightfall. The anger that seemed pure and righteous at noon diffuses by dusk, revealing undertones of fear, disappointment, even envy. Every emotion is a spectrum, every thought a gradient, never an object, always an event. When you try to hold one still, it shifts, escapes, multiplies. Like smoke in a jar, the more tightly you seal the lid, the more the substance dissipates, leaving only the memory of what you thought you understood. Neuroscience reveals the slipperiness beneath our certainties. Emotions are not stored in discrete brain regions, but ripple across networks, interacting, colliding, blending. A single neural spark can ignite memories, images, urges. No two alike, never twice the same. Thoughts are even wilder, leaping from association to association, creating meaning out of randomness, forging new paths in every instant. The brain's effort to classify is an act of desperation, a perpetual sorting that can never quite keep up with the current. Language itself is both a gift and a trap. Words pin down what cannot truly be pinned. When we say anxiety or desire, we point to a storm already moving elsewhere. The real feeling is a dance of hormones, histories, instincts, and silent intuitions, tangled in a web too intricate for a single word. The more we try to categorize, the more we feel the inadequacy of the categories. Sometimes, the only honest answer is silence, a quiet surrender to the complexity within. This collapse of containers is both terrifying and liberating. It means we can never fully know ourselves, that certainty is an illusion, that every attempt to map the self is a sketch drawn on water. But it also means we are not trapped by old labels, not defined forever by one emotion, one idea, one version of who we once were. We are allowed to change, to contradict ourselves, to discover new shades of feeling and thought in every moment. The self is not a museum, but a weather system, unpredictable, beautiful, and wild. Consider the moments when life demands certainty, the job interview, the confession of love, the apology to a friend. We reach for the right jar, the precise label, hoping to offer what is real, but underneath we sense the shifting, the truth that what we feel is both more and less than words can hold. To admit this is not weakness, but a kind of courage, a willingness to stand in the storm, to witness the collapse of the old containers and accept the freedom that follows. Art, music, and poetry exist precisely because of this collapse. They speak in metaphors and images, bypassing the jars altogether, evoking what cannot be named. A painting might capture sorrow and hope in the same brushstroke. A song might express longing and relief in the same note. In these moments, we glimpse the deeper truth, that the boundaries between emotions and thoughts are illusions, conveniences, shortcuts for a mind desperate for order. So, the next time you catch yourself trying to define what you feel, to fix your mind in a neat container, pause. Watch as the thought shifts, as the feeling twists and dances, refusing to be pinned. Allow yourself the luxury of ambiguity, the beauty of uncertainty. You are not an inventory of objects, but a symphony in flux, a living process that defies the comfort of jars. In the collapse of concept containers, you discover the raw, shifting miracle of being alive, a presence too vast to ever be held, but always somehow enough. The awareness spotlight bias. In every waking moment, your mind assures you of its competence. You see the world spread out before you, wide and detailed, as if every angle, every sound, every possibility is equally present in your mind's eye. But this is the grand illusion, the masterful trick your consciousness plays to keep you sane and functioning. The truth is far stranger, more fragile. At any given instant, you can only shine your awareness on a thin, shifting sliver of reality, a spotlight that cuts a bright path through the infinite darkness, while the rest remains hidden, edited, filled in, or erased. This is the awareness spotlight bias, the inescapable filter that fools you into believing your world is complete, when in reality, it is a careful construction, built from fragments and guesses, never the whole. Imagine stepping onto a crowded street at rush hour. The scene is chaos, colors, faces, sounds, movement in every direction. Yet, you feel in control, aware, able to navigate the river of bodies without stumbling. But inside your brain, an invisible director is working furiously, selecting what you notice, what you ignore, what you remember, and what you lose. Your attention is not a floodlight, but a narrow beam. You see a friend waving from the crowd, and in that instant, the world contracts. The friend becomes vivid. The background melts away. Your heart leaps. You miss the stranger's gaze, the fleeting warning in the car's horn, the child's laughter at your side. You live in the spotlight, and outside its circle, reality fades into shadow. Cognitive scientists call this selective attention, and its power is nearly absolute. In famous experiments, participants watch a video of people passing a basketball. Most never notice the person in a gorilla suit strolling through the middle, waving. The brain edits what does not fit the focus, erasing the impossible, the irrelevant, the uncomfortable. You do this not by choice, but by design. The world is too vast, too fast, too overwhelming to process all at once. The spotlight saves you from chaos, but at a price, it hides everything else. You believe instinctively that your mind is recording everything around you, a faithful witness, an impartial camera. But your memory is built from what the spotlight touches, and the rest is conjecture, filled in later by guesses, stories, and other people's accounts. This is why eyewitnesses to the same event can disagree so completely. Why siblings remember childhoods as if they lived in different houses. Why lovers can sit in the same room and recall the conversation in utterly different colors. The awareness spotlight bias is not just about what you see. It shapes what you hear, what you feel, even what you think. In an argument, your mind focuses on the points that validate your view, glossing over the words that challenge or threaten you. In moments of joy, pain fades into the background. In grief, happiness is all but invisible. This bias is the scaffolding of consciousness, the structure that allows you to function, to act, to believe in the story of you. But it is also the veil that keeps you from the whole. You are surrounded by uncounted miracles and dangers, by opportunities and warnings, by the unspoken, the unseen, the unnoticed. The world is bursting with data, colors your eyes can't see, scents you can't smell, histories you never learned, futures you cannot imagine. Yet, you live, moment to moment, within a theater of the known, illuminated by the moving spotlight of your awareness. The illusion is so convincing that you rarely question it. You trust your perceptions, your memories, your judgments. You believe your emotional reality is complete, that what you feel is all there is. But every once in a while, the spotlight flickers. An unexpected sound, a forgotten face, a truth that breaks through the script. In those moments, you realize how much you've missed, how much of the world lies waiting in the wings, unlit, unwitnessed, but powerfully present. Artists, mystics, and visionaries have always tried to widen the beam, to step outside the circle of light and glimpse the darkness beyond. Some succeed for a moment, catching flashes of insight, new ways of seeing, a broader truth. But for most of us, the bias is destiny. We are forever the audience to our own play, convinced the stage is the world, blind to the machinery behind the curtain. The next time you find yourself certain of your memories, your perceptions, your beliefs, pause. Ask what your spotlight is missing. Consider the invisible, the unheard, the ignored. Know that every moment is a choice about what to see, what to forget, and what to imagine into being. The awareness spotlight. Bias is both prison and passport. It limits you, but it also gives you the power to focus, to act, to change your world one narrow beam at a time. Somewhere in the shadows beyond your focus, the rest of reality waits, patient, vast, and filled with possibilities you may never know. And in the play of your mind's light, you glimpse the truth, that your world is not the world, but a masterpiece of attention, built to let you survive, to love, to dream, and always, always, to wonder what lies just beyond the circle of light. The consciousness boundaries myth. You have been taught since the earliest days to believe in the boundaries of self, that you are a single entity, wrapped in a layer of skin, sealed away from the outside world. That consciousness is a private theater, a lone observer behind the eyes, watching the spectacle of existence through the window of the senses. The world, you are told, is out there. The self, you are certain, is in here. It is a comforting story, clear, simple, defensible. But what if this story is an illusion? What if your sense of I is not a fortress, but a porous border, endlessly shaped and infiltrated by sensation, language, culture, by the very world you think you are apart from? This is the consciousness boundaries myth. The belief that awareness ends at the skin, when in truth, the self is a tide that rises and falls with every breath, every word, every unspoken connection. Pause, just for a moment, and notice your body. Feel the air touching your skin, the warmth or chill, the invisible pressure of gravity pulling you down. Your boundary seems obvious, the shell of flesh that keeps you distinct. But even now, sensation is a negotiation, an exchange. The air becomes part of you with each inhalation, oxygen surging through blood and muscle, transformed into thought and motion. Light enters your eyes and is not stopped by your boundary. It becomes vision, becomes meaning, becomes the very substance of your experience. The world outside is constantly crossing into you, and what you call I is, moment by moment, rewritten by what flows through. And then there is language, a force so subtle, so total, you rarely notice its reach. Words given to you by parents, teachers, friends, even strangers on the street. Your first cries echoed back as names, stories, commands. Over years, language settles in your mind, rooting itself in every thought, every desire, every memory. But language is never yours alone. It is the inheritance of a species, the echo of 1,000 generations, shaped by geography, culture, history, power. Every sentence you speak is a bridge between you and the world. Every idea you have is haunted by the structure of the tongue that shaped it. Where does I end and we begin when the very architecture of thought is a communal gift? Culture, too, seeps into you, sometimes so slowly you never feel it happening. The gestures you make without thinking, the beliefs you defend without question, the music that makes you cry, the food that soothes you, the stories that lull you to sleep. All of it is learned, borrowed, gifted, demanded. You are not just a body, not just a brain, but a mosaic of histories and encounters, a living archive of all that has touched you. The boundary between self and world is not a line, but a zone, a shimmering region of exchange and overlap, forever shifting. Science itself reveals the fallacy of separation. Your gut is alive with trillions of microbes, bacteria that outnumber your own cells, shaping your mood, your health, your very sense of well-being. The line between your mind and the ecosystem within is impossible to draw. The neurons in your brain fire in patterns that echo the social patterns of your group, synchronizing to the emotions and movements of others. Mirror neurons reflect the actions of those you watch, so that in some sense, you live through others as much as through yourself. Even consciousness itself is not so private as it seems. When you listen to a friend, your brain rhythms begin to match theirs, aligning in invisible sympathy. When you read a story, you imagine the world of the character, and for a while, their joys and sorrows become your own. A song moves through the air, and suddenly your body dances without permission, caught in a rhythm older than thought. The boundaries of awareness dissolve in the act of attention, of empathy, of shared experience. Yet, the myth persists. The illusion of the self as fortress, the insistence that I is untouched, sovereign, whole. Perhaps this is because the world is dangerous, and the sense of separateness is a shield against loss, against invasion, against dissolution. But the price of this illusion is isolation, a loneliness that grows in the cracks between skin and world, a hunger for connection that can never be fed so long as the boundary is absolute. But what if you dared to see through the myth? What if you allowed yourself to feel the permeability of being? In every conversation, in every sensation, in every moment of art, you are being changed, remade, dissolved, and reconstituted. The world is not something you witness from afar. It is something you participate in, are inseparable from. Even your sense of self, your memories, your habits, your deepest convictions, are stories shaped by context, by community, by forces larger than any individual mind. This is not to erase the self, but to expand it, to recognize that the I you cherish is a meeting place, a shimmering tide pool where world and mind mingle, to realize that every boundary is also a bridge, every wall a membrane alive with passage. Your awareness is not locked behind your eyes, but stretches outward as far as your attention, your compassion, your curiosity can reach. The world is always touching you, shaping you, living through you, and in turn, you ripple outward, a single mind in the vast sea of minds, a single note in the living music of consciousness. So the next time you feel separate, boxed in by skin, defined by difference, pause and listen for what is moving through. Feel the sun on your arm, the echo of a distant voice, the way a stranger's laughter becomes your own. You are not an island. You are the edge where world and self collide, the boundary that is no boundary at all. The myth of consciousness is not that it exists, but that it ever belonged only to you. The self is others' effect. You walk through your life believing you are a singular self, a unique presence, separate and solid, defined by private thoughts and personal history. But look closer, and the boundaries begin to blur, dissolve. The self is others' effect. The haunting realization that your identity is not yours alone, but a patchwork, a chorus, a living mosaic of all the voices, gazes, and expectations you've ever absorbed. Your mind is a cathedral whose walls were raised by 1,000 hands. The face you see in the mirror is painted in brushstrokes, borrowed from everyone who has ever looked at you. From the very first breath, you are mirrored in the eyes of others. Their tone tells you who you are: good, bad, clever, invisible. You inherit gestures from your parents, adopt the slang of friends, bend to the subtle gravity of every passing glance. Even solitude is never pure, because the language you use to talk to yourself was learned from someone else, borrowed, traded, encoded in your nervous system long before you ever spoke. Each memory is filtered through another's expectation, each desire colored by the hopes and fears you've absorbed like secondhand smoke. Your sense of humor, your confidence, your very concept of love, all are haunted by the echo of others, shaping you from the inside out. Science confirms what poets and philosophers have whispered for centuries. The self is a social construction, a neural symphony composed of countless influences. Mirror neurons fire when you see another's gesture. Empathy flickers when you sense another's joy or pain. The mind builds itself through imitation, anticipation, adaptation, a relentless choreography of becoming shaped by all the minds you encounter. You wear the faces of your childhood friends in your laughter, your teachers in your doubts, the long-lost voices of strangers in the patterns of your speech. There are moments when you feel yourself shifting, becoming someone else in the presence of a lover or a rival, a parent or a crowd. These are not failures of authenticity, but glimpses into the truth. Your identity is a process, not a possession. You are not one self, but many, fluid and ever-changing, depending on the context, the company, the invisible network of relationships that sustains you. Even your most private thoughts are shaped by imagined audiences, the parent you wish to please, the critic you fear, the friend you long to impress. Yet, there is a strange, fierce beauty in this entanglement. To be made of others is to be bound to the world, to never truly be alone. The kindness shown to you becomes the kindness you show yourself. The cruelty, too, finds its echo in the stories you tell when the room is quiet. You are both inheritance and invention, the sum of a million influences and the one who weaves them into something new. There is freedom in recognizing this, the power to choose which voices you amplify, which expectations you defy, which borrowed masks you finally lay down. Sometimes, late at night, you may wonder where you end and the world begins. You search for a core, a final self, untouched by others' hands, and find only layers, each one painted in another's gaze. But perhaps this is not a failing, but a gift, to be porous, to be changed, to belong to something greater than yourself. The self is others. Affect is not an erasure of individuality, but an invitation to empathy, a call to see yourself in every stranger and to recognize every stranger in yourself. So the next time you question who you are, remember the chorus of minds that built you. You are the sum and the song of every life you've ever touched, and every life that has ever touched yours. Yourself is not a fortress, but a bridge, and the world is forever crossing it, leaving behind traces, memories, and the possibility of becoming, again and again, someone entirely new. The cleansing identity, ritual. There comes a moment in every life when you feel the need to begin again. Not merely to change your habits, but to wash away some invisible residue that clings to your mind. A layer of memory, judgment, or expectation that was never truly yours. In these moments, you reach instinctively for the cleansing identity ritual, the acts, large or small, that promise to reset the self, to carve away the weight of unwanted histories, and let the true you emerge, clean and trembling, on the other side. You know these rituals by heart, even if you've never named them. The impulsive haircut, scissors snipping off months or years of silent burden. The new journal, its blank pages, an invitation to rewrite your story from the beginning. The tearful confession, whispered to a friend or a stranger, as if speaking the truth aloud can dissolve what once haunted you in secret. You feel lighter after these acts, as if a layer of dust has been swept away from your soul. But why does it work? Why do these gestures hold such power when the memories and scars they target are made of thought, not flesh? It is because identity is not fixed, but a process, a river, not a stone. You are not the sum of your experiences, but the way you interpret, discard, and reimagine them. Old emotions linger like smoke, clouding the present. You absorb the expectations of others, their judgments, their stories about who you are. Some stick to you like wet leaves, slowing your step, until you mistake their heaviness for your own. The cleansing identity ritual is your way of peeling them off, reclaiming the space within, allowing the self to reassemble in a form that fits the moment, not the past. There is ancient magic in these rituals, though you perform them in ordinary clothes, in ordinary rooms. The haircut is a symbolic shedding, the pain, the doubt, the old version of yourself tumbling to the floor in soft curls and ragged ends. The journal is a sacred text, each word an offering to the altar of possibility. The confession is a kind of baptism, purifying you through the vulnerability of truth, breaking the seal of silence and letting forgiveness flow in. Sometimes the ritual is silent, a walk at dawn, feet pounding the cold earth, breath sharp and cleansing. Sometimes it's violent, a purging of closets, a burning of old letters, a scream into a pillow when no one is listening. You may not believe in ritual, may laugh at the idea, but the body knows. The mind craves ceremony, a rhythm for transformation. Even the most skeptical reach for these rites in times of loss or uncertainty, seeking a way to mark the crossing from one life into another. Yet, there is a deeper paradox at the heart of the cleansing identity ritual. The residues you try to wash away, the failures, the shame, the borrowed beliefs, were never truly real. They were stories, moments, judgments that attach themselves to your surface but never reach the core. You are not your regrets, not your reputation, not the things others said or did. But knowing this is not enough. You must enact it. Show your body, your senses, your mind, that you are willing to begin again. Some people live by ritual, changing hair, home, friends every season, always chasing the next reset. Others resist, fearing that if they let go of the past, they will lose themselves altogether. But the truth is simpler and stranger. You are renewed not by forgetting, but by recognizing that your identity is not a prison, but a space, a room with open windows, a garden that thrives on clearing as much as planting. The world is full of reminders that transformation is possible. Trees shed their leaves and wait for spring. Rivers carve new paths after every flood. The body replaces every cell, quietly, over years. You are not meant to carry every residue forever. The ritual, whatever form it takes, is your way of honoring this law of nature, of giving yourself permission to change. After the act comes the hush, a moment of emptiness, frightening and exhilarating. You look in the mirror, or at the fresh page, or into the eyes of someone who has heard your confession, and you wonder, who am I now? The answer is never final. That is the gift and the curse of being human. You will gather new residues, new memories, new expectations, and one day you will need to cleanse again. So cherish the rituals that help you let go. They are not lies nor escapes, but declarations of freedom, the refusal to be trapped by what is already over. With every haircut, every journal, every whispered secret, you declare that you are more than the past, more than the roles you've played, more than the dust that settles when life grows still. The cleansing identity ritual is your doorway to the next chapter, the promise that you can always begin again. The mirror without reflection. There is an ancient yearning woven through the fabric of every human life, the desire to know oneself, to see, finally and completely, who we really are. We are told from childhood that self-knowledge is possible, even noble. To gaze inward is to discover our core, our truth, our deepest motives. We imagine the self as a hidden chamber or a secret face behind the daily mask, just waiting to be revealed in the bright, merciless light of introspection. But what if this is the most persistent illusion of all? What if, every time you seek to know yourself, you are peering into a mirror that will never reflect you truly, a surface that distorts and fractures even as you try to see? This is the paradox of the mirror without reflection. That awareness can never step outside itself to witness its own true nature. You can never look at yourself from the outside, never step around behind your own eyes to catch the self in the act. Every effort to do so is already colored, already bent by the act of looking. The image is not you, but your mind's idea of you, shaped by memory, desire, fear, and hope. The clearer you try to see, the more the surface bends and warps until the self becomes a hall of shifting images, always receding, never finally reached. Think of those late-night moments when you stare into your own eyes in the bathroom mirror, searching for a glimmer of revelation. There is a strangeness, a distance, as if the eyes looking back are not quite yours, or are someone you almost remember. The mind loops. Who am I? What do I want? But every answer feels like a mask, another layer of narrative built upon the last. The closer you look, the more the real self dissolves, until you are left only with the reflection of your own searching. It is the tragedy and the marvel of consciousness. You can be aware, or you can observe, but never both at once. You are the light shining into the darkness, but you can never turn the light on itself. Each act of self-reflection splits the mind in two, observer and observed, yet both are only parts of the same process, shadows of a whole that remains forever unseen. When you try to watch your own awareness, you become lost in recursion, like a camera filming its own monitor, the image tunneling to infinity, never arriving at its source. Psychology has a name for this distance, the introspection illusion. We believe that looking inward gives us special access to our motives and truths, but the reality is more slippery. What we find inside is always after the fact, an explanation, a story, a guess painted over the shifting patterns of feeling and thought. The real engine of the self is buried, inaccessible, running on ancient instincts, social scripts, and silent calculations. Our reasons are rationalizations, our certainties guesses woven to keep the world from feeling too alien. The sciences agree. There is no single seat of self in the brain, no place where the true I sits and surveys the inner landscape. The mind is a parliament, a swarm, a set of processes negotiating in darkness. When you try to find yourself, you are hearing echoes, not a voice. Even memory is treacherous, a patchwork of reconstructions and edits, ever-changing, as unreliable as a story told and retold over years. The image in the mirror is not fixed, but changes with every mood, every new experience, every flicker of hope or regret. Yet, we return again and again to the mirror, desperate to see. We meditate, confess, journal, analyze. Sometimes, for a fleeting second, there is clarity, a sudden sense of presence, a feeling that we have touched the truth of who we are. But even this dissolves as soon as we try to hold it, to name it, to show it to ourselves or others. The light slips through the fingers of attention. The truth is a shadow that flees from the act of looking. Is this a tragedy or a freedom? Perhaps the inability to see ourselves clearly is a kind of mercy. We are not trapped by a single fixed identity, not doomed to carry a static self through the decades. The distortion in the mirror allows us to change, to adapt, to forgive ourselves for what we cannot fully know or explain. Each attempt at self-reflection reveals a different angle, a new possibility, a truth that belongs only to that moment. The self is not a stone, but a river, and the mirror without reflection is its ever-shifting surface. Artists, mystics, and poets have always circled this paradox. In their most honest moments, they admit the impossibility of true self-knowledge. They speak in riddles and metaphors, hinting at truths too complex to be captured in words or images. The paintings are never finished, the songs are never complete, the poems always end in mystery. But in this failure, there is beauty, a recognition that what cannot be seen can still be felt, that the self is not an object, but an experience in motion. So, the next time you seek to know yourself, remember, the mirror is not broken. It was never meant to give you a perfect image. The act of looking changes what is seen. The desire to understand is part of what makes you mysterious, alive, unrepeatable. You are not a puzzle to be solved, but a presence to be lived, distorted, shifting, beautiful in your own uncertainty. The self can never step outside itself, never see its own face. But in the longing to do so, in the endless approach, you become something greater than reflection. You become the light behind the mirror, the source of all searching, the one who sees, even if you can never see yourself whole. The goal creation loop. There is a story you tell yourself, a story of purpose, of planning, of a self who moves through life guided by clear goals and deliberate intention. You imagine you choose your path, setting targets and working steadily toward them, the architect of your own destiny. But what if this is a carefully crafted illusion? What if, beneath every goal, every dream, every burning ambition, there is a deeper, older current, an unconscious momentum that surges first, carrying you forward, and only then does your mind invent the goals to explain the motion. This is the goal creation loop, the recursive, invisible process in which your brain justifies action by forging the very purpose it claims to serve. You wake one morning with a restless urge, a need to move, to act, to reach for something undefined. Before you can name it, you are tidying your room, opening your inbox, searching for jobs, starting a new project. The movement comes first, a ripple from somewhere beyond words or conscious thought. Only later does the mind leap in, crafting stories, setting milestones, inventing reasons. I did this because I want to be productive. I started this because I have a plan. I need this because it is my goal. The reality is upside down. The action preceded the intention. But the mind, master of rationalization, weaves the narrative backward until it feels as if the goal was always there, waiting to be pursued. Scientists have begun to map this loop. Studies show that the brain often initiates action before conscious awareness. Neural activity flares milliseconds before you decide to reach, to speak, to change direction. The unconscious mind is a seething engine, restless and relentless, always moving, always searching for new paths. The conscious mind lags behind, a translator, an interpreter, rushing to catch up, assigning meaning to what was already set in motion. You believe you choose your goals, but often you inherit them. Born in the shadow of momentum you can never fully see. Think of the sudden inspiration that strikes while walking, showering, or drifting off to sleep. The mind seizes on an idea, a mission, a purpose, and it feels as though it arrived fully formed. In truth, the process began long before, seeded by countless impressions, unnoticed triggers, stray emotions, forgotten conversations. The brain stirs, a direction emerges, and only then does awareness awaken to claim ownership. This is what I want. This is who I am. The goal is the aftershock, not the earthquake. This loop shapes the whole architecture of desire and ambition. Why do you chase one dream and not another? Why do some paths open before you, irresistible, while others fade to static? The answer is buried in the machinery of the mind, in networks of memory, instinct, repetition, and the secret choreography of emotion. You are carried forward by currents you cannot name, building bridges across the river as you cross it, believing each plank was always meant to be. Marketers, politicians, storytellers all understand the loop's power. They nudge you, prime you, expose you to signals and cues, knowing your mind will assemble the goal after the fact, convinced it was always yours. The world becomes a hall of mirrors, each reflection more convincing than the last. You chase careers, relationships, revolutions, every pursuit a product of momentum first, justification second. The more compelling the story, the more deeply you believe the goal was born inside, rather than sewn into your path by accident, necessity, or design. This is not to say your goals are meaningless or your ambitions a fraud. Rather, the loop reveals how much of your life is a collaboration, a dance between instinct and intention, between the river's current and the story of the sailor at the helm. You are not less real for riding the loop. You are simply more complex, more mysterious, less the single author than the chorus of impulses, memories, and explanations that surge and fade with every step. Sometimes, the loop malfunctions. You move without knowing why, lost in compulsions, chasing goals that dissolve into emptiness. Or you find yourself paralyzed, the current gone still, and the mind flails to invent new desires, new targets, anything to justify movement. In these moments, the illusion is exposed, and you glimpse the machinery behind the mask, the endless feedback between what you do and why you believe you do it. The next time you feel a burning ambition, pause. Ask yourself, did I create this goal or did the motion come first? Am I the architect or the interpreter? In this question lies a freedom, the freedom to let go of goals that no longer serve, to recognize when your story is just a story and to step outside the loop, if only for a moment, to witness the truth, that you are both the river and the traveler, both the author and the reader, swept forward by a momentum that is ancient, unconscious, and beautifully, inescapably human. The mind-body lag. You feel yourself in control, the master of every motion, the captain of a vessel sailing through the world. Yet, beneath this confidence lies a startling truth. Your conscious awareness is always a step behind. Your mind watches the body's dance as if from the wings, narrating actions already begun, memories already forming. This is the mind-body lag, the subtle, silent delay between movement and awareness, the illusion that consciousness leads when it merely follows. Every action you take is initiated by the nervous system, a complex orchestra of neurons firing long before your mind becomes aware of a decision. When you pull your hand from a hot surface, the reflex arcs trigger instantly, the muscles contracting before the thought, ouch, arises. When you catch a falling cup, your body reacts with lightning speed, faster than you can say, wait. Your brain's motor cortex sends commands, your muscles execute, and only afterward does your consciousness step forward to claim credit, to make sense of what has already unfolded. Try this now. Tap your finger once, twice, 3 times. Notice how the decision to move was not felt before the movement, but seemed to arise simultaneously or even after. This delay, measured in milliseconds, is invisible but profound. It reveals that consciousness is not the commander of action, but the storyteller, the interpreter, the witness who assembles the narrative after the fact. Your sense of agency is a constructed illusion. Your mind convinces you it is leading the dance, but in reality, it watches the steps already taken. This lag is not a flaw, it is a necessity. The nervous system operates on layers of automatic processing, reflex, and prediction, weaving together signals faster than awareness could ever keep pace. If you had to consciously control every twitch of every muscle, every shift of balance, life would slow to a crawl. Consciousness is not about moment-to-moment control. It is about integration, reflection, and planning. It stitches past, present, and future into a coherent self, even as the body races ahead. The implications of this lag ripple deep into your experience of self. The you who feels in control is often an afterimage, a shadow cast by processes invisible to your mind. Decisions arise before awareness, habits form beneath the radar, emotions surge without consent. You think you choose freely, but many choices are made unconsciously, with consciousness chiming in, later to endorse or regret. The mind rides the wave of body and brain, pretending to steer, but really swept along by currents it cannot see. Consider moments of extreme flow or automaticity, typing a sentence, playing an instrument, driving a familiar route. Your body moves effortlessly, guided by muscle memory and practice skill, while your mind drifts elsewhere, planning, daydreaming, analyzing. When asked, you recall the movement, but it was never fully present to consciousness in real time. The mind-body lag dissolves the boundary between doing and observing. You are both actor and audience, sometimes unaware you are on stage at all. This phenomenon raises questions about free will and identity. If awareness lags behind action, where does the self reside? Is the conscious mind the author of your story or the editor? Neuroscience shows that brain activity predicting decisions can be detected before you are aware of choosing. The mind fabricates a narrative of agency, a continuous self who commands and controls, but this narrative is pieced together from fragments already enacted. Yet the lag is not only mechanical, it colors the texture of experience. The sense of embodiment, of being in your body, depends on the brain integrating sensory input and motor output across time. This integration smooths the rough edges of delay into a seamless flow. Without it, you might feel disconnected, alien, split between mind and flesh. The mind-body lag is the hidden rhythm that choreographs the dance of presence, always a breath behind, but never out of step. This delay also allows for reflection and learning. Because consciousness arrives after the action, it can evaluate, adjust, and plan future moves. The mind watches the body's performance and shapes the script for the next act. Awareness is not a real-time controller, but a reflective artist, crafting meaning from movement, memory from sensation, identity from narrative. It is the postmodern self, forever reconstructing its own story. In moments of mindfulness or meditation, you may glimpse beyond the lag. You slow the mind's commentary, deepen the attention, and notice the subtle spaces between thought and action. In these pauses, the illusion of control loosens, and the fluid interplay of body and awareness becomes clearer. The mind no longer insists it is the leader, but surrenders to the unfolding moment, embracing the dance as it is, not as it pretends to be. The mind-body lag reminds us that the self is not a fixed point, but a dynamic process, an emergent dance of flesh, nerve, and story. Consciousness does not command from the front lines, but observes from just behind the curtain, narrating the play as it unfolds. The feeling of agency, of control, is a beautiful fiction, one that allows us to live, learn, and love. And perhaps, in knowing the lag, we find humility, the grace to recognize how much of our being is mystery, how much of our life is lived before we even know it. So next time you reach out to touch the world, remember this secret rhythm. Your awareness rides the wave of body and brain, always a step behind, crafting the story of you after the dance has already begun. And in that delay lies the paradox and the poetry of human existence. The mind that watches itself move through the world, pretending to lead, but truly following, forever entwined in the infinite choreography of life. The habit memory takeover. Every day you move through countless moments, pouring coffee, walking to work, scrolling through your phone, speaking words you barely think about. You feel in control, the captain of your own ship, steering your life with conscious choices. But beneath this sense of agency lies a startling truth. Most of what you do is memory playing itself out. A complex choreography rehearsed and recorded in the deep halls of your mind long before awareness arrives. Consciousness watches, convinced it is choosing, but the script has been written and the performance rehearsed long before you stepped on stage. Habits are not mere routines, they are memory loops, networks of neurons forged through repetition, encoding patterns so ingrained that they run automatically beneath the surface of thought. When you brush your teeth, tie your shoes, or greet a colleague, it is memory reaching through time to shape your actions. These patterns free your mind to wander, to think, to dream, but they also bind you, confining your behavior to echoes of the past, making the familiar feel effortless and inevitable. Neuroscience reveals that much of decision-making occurs before you are even aware of it. The brain prepares actions, simulates outcomes, primes muscles, and only then does consciousness catch up, narrating the choice as if it were free and spontaneous. This lag creates a powerful illusion of control. You believe you are choosing the path, but often you are following a well-worn groove carved by countless repetitions, a ghostly echo of your own history. Consider the moments when habits surprise you. You find yourself driving a route without remembering the turns, typing words without thinking, or reacting in ways that feel out of character. In these slips, memory takes the wheel, guiding you down paths laid long ago, while your conscious self drifts along, convinced it is steering. This takeover is both a blessing and a trap, a system designed for efficiency but vulnerable to entrapment. Habits can shape identity as much as intention. The stories you tell yourself, I am organized, I am kind, I am impatient, are often reflections of the patterns memory has entrenched. Changing these requires more than willpower. It demands rewiring, creating new pathways in the labyrinth of mind. Until then, memory's grip remains tight, playing the old tunes, keeping you locked in familiar rhythms. The habit memory takeover is why self-improvement is so difficult. Why motivation falters. Why new resolutions fade into forgotten promises. Consciousness can only watch, nudging gently but powerless against the momentum of deep-rooted patterns. Yet this awareness is also a tool. The first step toward change is recognizing the takeover, seeing the ghost in the machine, and choosing where to place your attention. When you become the observer, you begin to glimpse the spaces between automatic action and conscious choice. You notice the moments when memory reaches forward and when awareness steps in. In that pause lies possibility, the chance to rewrite the script, to build new habits, to reclaim agency. It is not easy, but it is the essence of transformation. So the next time you find yourself acting without thought, pause. Ask, is this my choice or is it memory playing itself? Feel the layers beneath your awareness, the echoes of the past shaping the present. And know that consciousness is not absent, but invited. You are both actor and audience in this play, and every moment holds the potential to step out of the old routine and into a new story. In the dance between memory and awareness, habit and choice, lies the true mystery of the self, always evolving, never fully owned, yet deeply felt. The habit memory, takeover is not a prison, but a doorway. Walk through it with eyes open, and the path ahead may surprise you. The background noise self. Close your eyes and listen, not to the sounds around you, but to the silence itself. Yet even in that silence, your mind hums. It never truly stops. Beneath every quiet moment lies a subtle, persistent background noise, a restless, endless stream of thought, feeling, memory, and sensation, weaving the fabric of who you are. This is the background noise self. The truth that you are not defined by isolated moments of clarity or stillness, but by the ceaseless hum behind them, the constant murmur beneath every pause. You imagine silence as emptiness, a blank space where nothing stirs. But in truth, silence is only the absence of loudness, not the absence of mind. Your brain, your heart, your body vibrate with activity even in the deepest calm. Neurons fire in intricate patterns. Memories surface and fade. Emotions ripple beneath your awareness. You are not a bright spotlight flickering on and off, but a continuous hum, a background vibration that persists, shapes your experience, and holds your sense of self together. Consider the moments you think of as silent, the stillness before sleep, the calm between breaths, the pause in conversation where words fail. In these spaces, the background noise is often louder than you realize, a tide of unspoken fears, hopes, regrets, and desires, swirling just beyond your conscious grasp. Sometimes, this noise becomes a storm, a flood of anxiety or sadness that seems to come from nowhere, or a swell of joy that lifts you beyond words. Yet even when it is soft and steady, this hum is your truest companion. It is easy to mistake the moment of silence as the real you, the clear, unburdened self free from thought and distraction. Meditation, mindfulness, and quiet reflection seek to touch this space. But what you find is not emptiness, but a a vibration that never ceases. The self is less a sudden flash of awareness than the persistent resonance beneath it, the invisible soundtrack of your existence. This background noise is shaped by memory and language, by the way you narrate your own story even when you are not speaking. It is the voice that whispers fears you never voice aloud, the feeling that lingers after a conversation ends, the echo of old songs and long-forgotten words. You live not in the silence, but in the hum behind it. Without it, the moment itself would dissolve into nothing. The background noise self also explains the profound difficulty of truly quieting the mind. Even in the deepest sleep, your brain never fully shuts down. Dreams are the noise's wild dance, bursting into color and story when the body rests. When you think you are empty, your mind is only hiding the hum beneath layers of distraction and focus. Sometimes, this background noise becomes unbearable. It spirals into loops of doubt, regret, or obsession. You try to drown it out with music, work, or sleep, but it returns, persistent and insistent, the true pulse of your being. It is the engine that drives your thoughts and feelings, the source of your creativity and your pain alike. It is, in essence, your invisible self. Yet, there is beauty in this hum. It connects you to the flow of life, to the continuity of your existence across moments, days, and years. It is the thread that ties together the fragments of experience into a coherent story, a story you tell yourself again and again through the background noise to remind yourself who you are. The silence you seek is never pure. It is always shot through with this quiet vibration, sometimes soft, sometimes loud, but always there. To accept the background noise self is to accept the endless complexity of consciousness, the fact that you are both the voice and the silence behind it, the song and the space between the notes. So the next time you find yourself alone with silence, do not fear the hum beneath. Listen deeply. Let the background noise rise and fall like a secret melody that carries your identity through the quiet. Know that you are not the fleeting moment, but the continuous resonance that holds it all together, an endless echo in the vast chamber of being. You are the hum beneath every pause, the soft vibration beneath the stillness, the invisible self singing softly behind the scenes of your life. And in that hum, you are never truly alone. The inner simulation stage. Imagine your mind as a vast theater, not of flesh and wood, but of endless possibility, a place where worlds rise and fall in the flicker of thought, where scenes unfold with perfect clarity and actors speak in voices both familiar and strange. This is the inner simulation stage, the secret set where your consciousness builds virtual realities, scripts, dialogues, and projects' futures, then steps inside the play as both director and audience, performer and witness. Here, you live within layers of your own creation, believing the simulation to be real even as you watch it unravel moment by moment. Every day, your mind constructs scenes of astonishing complexity. You rehearse conversations before they happen, replay memories with subtle edits, and imagine futures branching endlessly in every direction. These mental theaters are not idle daydreams, but intricate simulations, running ceaselessly in the background, rehearsing possibilities, testing outcomes, crafting narratives that shape your decisions and your sense of self. You are both trapped and free within this endless stage, caught in a loop of creation and observation, playing roles scripted by your own thoughts. Consider the sensation of anticipation, the moment before a difficult talk, a confession, a choice. Your mind fast-forwards into countless versions of what might be said, how others might react, the feelings that might follow. Each scenario is vivid, immersive, and emotional. You step into these virtual sets as fully as you do into the real world. Your heart races, your skin flushes, your breath quickens. Yet, all this is happening inside the simulation, a rehearsal, a prelude to reality, and sometimes a reality in itself. Memory is no less theatrical. When you recall an event, you don't replay it like a video. You reconstruct it as a scene, casting yourself and others in roles colored by emotion and perspective. Details shift, lines change, the setting rearranges itself to fit the story you need to tell. The simulation is fluid, malleable, always adapting. You watch yourself through a kaleidoscope of perception, sometimes as protagonist, sometimes as critic, always as creator. This simulation is not static. It projects futures, spinning webs of cause and effect, imagining outcomes that guide your choices and shape your fears. When you worry about what might come or dream of what could be, you are stepping onto a stage built entirely of possibility. Each imagined future is a play, a scene acted out within the theater of your mind, full of actors made from your hopes, your doubts, your memories. The power of this inner stage is immense. It can bind you to old fears or free you into new courage, influence your actions before the world even unfolds. The paradox is that you are never simply the observer or simply the actor. You are both, shifting seamlessly between watching the scene and living within it. Sometimes you catch yourself stepping back, realizing that the conversation you're having in your mind is just a simulation, a rehearsal. You may even try to rewrite the script, change the lines, adjust the set, but just as often, you lose yourself entirely, caught in the emotions, the urgency, the drama, forgetting that it's all a stage. Neuroscience reveals that this inner simulation is a fundamental feature of the brain, a predictive engine constantly generating models of the world, of self, of others. It is how you learn, how you plan, how you empathize. Yet it also traps you in loops of rumination, anxiety, regret. The stage can become a prison where fears replay endlessly, scenes loop without resolution, and the boundary between simulation and reality blurs. Philosophers and mystics have long pointed to this inner theater as the root of illusion, the place where the self arises and where it can dissolve. To awaken is, in part, to see the play for what it is, a construction, a story, a flickering shadow on the walls of your mind. To realize you are not the character, but the stage itself, the empty space in which the play unfolds, the silent witness behind every scene. Yet, even with this knowledge, the simulation continues. It is both the source of your suffering and your creativity, your cage and your canvas. The inner simulation stage is the realm where identity is forged and remade, where dreams are spun and shattered, where you live countless lives within a single breath. It is the secret heart of experience, the theater without walls, the play without end, the infinite unfolding of self inside self. So, next time your mind spins a story, rehearses a future, or replays a memory, remember, you are both the actor caught in the scene and the audience watching from the wings. You live inside the simulation, believing in its reality, while simultaneously holding the power to rewrite the script, shift the stage, and, perhaps, step outside the play altogether. The theater is vast, the lights are always on, and the show goes on. Because this is what it means to be alive, a mind forever simulating, forever watching, forever becoming.